refuses to believe queer theory destabilizes normativity, gender binary, and the nuclear family. Change blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. He used to believe in something, what happened? Mills for liberty. Gnostic sex cult, building his own world. A Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality, totally lost in what can we do? But mock him relentlessly. It's not a Gnostic sex cult, James. No, it's not. Stop lying to your audience. No, it's not. It's not Gnostic change. Mary Nardini tells us queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism. Catch-up change, whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. Whoa. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's capitalism. To pocket all that money from the mills for liberty. The left hates capitalism, but James won't admit it. He refuses to believe queer theory stabilizes normativity, gender binary, and the nuclear family. But James blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. Is to believe in something. What happens for liberty? Gnostic sex cult, building his own world. Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality. He's totally lost it. What can we do but mock him relentlessly?
Hey, everyone. It's Friday. We did it. Welcome to Happy Hour. Happy Hour is a stream that we do on the cult every Friday where we watch a woke training from start to finish and we drink some beer and we talk about it because the very best way to learn what the left is doing in the real world is to actually watch the left in the real world. I know this is a crazy concept to the James Lindsay supporters in the house, or James Lindsay himself even, and we'll talk about James today. But I don't believe that we can go and read philosophy written by dead people 50, 100, 150, 200 years ago and understand what the left is doing in the real world today. I think we actually need to go and listen to specifically what the left is teaching when they're in closed doors, when they're with each other, when they don't think people like us are paying attention. And because of that, the people who do watch my content on a regular basis are about 1 to 2 years ahead of every pundit, of every commentator. Certainly we are light years ahead of James Lindsay and his audience because we actually listen to the left. Unlike James, we don't just make shit up and pull shit out of our ass and then call names to anyone who might disagree with us and ridicule them and make character attacks without ever actually grappling with their arguments at all. No, we don't do that. We just watch the left in the real world and we talk about it. Guys, I'm going to need everyone to mount the like button for me because it kind of seems like notifications haven't gone out on the stream because we have a significantly smaller audience right now than usual. And I don't know why that is. other than I do know that YouTube does have a tendency to not send notifications out every once in a while. So I need everyone here to mount the like button so that we can actually get YouTube to start recommending the stream. Because otherwise there just might not be any reason for us to be here, if I'm being very honest about it. But I guess we'll see how it goes. Hopefully some more people will join us as the stream gets going. Now, guys, we're going to be doing actually something interesting today. We're actually going to be watching a debate prep. This is a debate prep from Dartmouth College, an hour up the road from where I live. The Ivy League college in New Hampshire. It used to be the only like conservative Ivy League school, and then they let women in, and it was all downhill from there. And so today Dartmouth is no longer. Well, I mean, I think it probably is more conservative than most colleges are, but it's not really that conservative. But you know what? Lucky for us, the Dartmouth College debate team puts all their prep sessions on YouTube, and they did one about queer theory. And so we are going to be watching this one today. And this is basically a presentation about queer theory that was given to debaters at Dartmouth College. We will discuss what the word queer means, why it's a theory, and what it can do/be for you in debate. And this is given by a guy named Nick. Nick is the assistant debate coach for Montgomery Bell Academy and a PhD candidate at the University of Georgia. He has coached multiple teams to elimination rounds of the Tournament of Champions, National Debate Coaches Association, and the National Debate Tournament. Nick is returning to Dartmouth Debate Something for his 6th year and is excited to work with a new set of students. Now, you know what was funny? When I was searching their YouTube channel, I was like, what other videos do they have? Debate Institute at Dartmouth. That's what DDI stands for. Debate Institutes at Dartmouth. I was like, what other videos do they have? They got this queer theory video that they just barely uploaded less than 24 hours ago. But what other videos do they have? And I started kind of scrolling down their list of videos. And I came across, wait for it. I came across something interesting. Well, there's a Marxism one, but that's not the one I'm actually looking for. I thought the one I was looking for was before that. Maybe it was after it. Hang on. I think it was before this. Apologies, I must have missed it. Where the heck was it? Because it is high. Oh, here it is. They also have a prep session called Capitalism and Neoliberalism. And guess what? It's by the same guy. The same guy that's doing this queer theory debate prep also did the capitalism and neoliberalism debate prep 1 year ago, at which time he wore a mask on Zoom. Isn't that interesting? So we're going to see what this guy had to say about queer theory today. And we're going to enjoy some tasty beverages while we do that. But before we get into that, I, as always, have a couple orders of business. Number 1 order of business is that, well, can I just make a confession? I drank too much last night. I drank way too much last night. I had basically a bottle and a half of sparkling wine over the course of the entire evening. And I haven't had that much wine in a while. And so I just want to ease in to today's stream. Do I have a hangover? No, I actually really don't have a hangover. I don't have a hangover. I just feel very kind of like, eh. I'm like, I slept in today. Victor had to come wake me up. And when Victor woke me up, it was so funny. He came upstairs and he just handed me a giant bottle of water. I was like, oh, I have the best husband in the world. And but it was rough to get up today. I have to say. But so I thought we would ease into things. Exactly, SS. I thought we would ease into things. And we're gonna watch that Tim Pool clip in which Carl Benjamin is complaining about James Lindsay. You guys want to do that? Just to get started. I think that'll be fun. Now, before we get into that, I want to do a couple other things before we get into it. We will be talking quite a bit about James for just a minute and James's cronies, because I got to tell you, James and his friends are not happy about me on Twitter. But I want to do a couple other real things first. Guys, number one, per usual, always remember to please subscribe to my Substack. That is Carlyn, Karlyn .substack.com. This is my main content hub on the internet. Please make sure you sign up for free email updates. And if you want to support the work I'm doing, the very best way to do that is by being in the Substack for $8 a month, $80 a year. That helps me keep track of how much support I have coming in, helps me actually plan for stuff, and I really do appreciate it. Now, as part of the benefits you get for supporting the work I'm doing, you get a variety of perks, to include Zoom calls with me that are private, that are unrecorded. You also get to join my supporter Discord, where we're doing a lot of cool stuff. And we do movie nights on Sunday night in my supporter Discord. And we just did a poll for movie night for this week, and Inglourious Bastards, it looks like, won. And so we will be watching Inglourious Bastards in my Discord on Sunday at 8 p.m. And we always do trivia. There's music related to the movie. And actually, it's actually kind of relevant to, like, I mean, that's about Nazis, right? So, like, it's kind of relevant to me embracing my inner fascist. So I'm pretty excited about that. And of course, like that, you guys do keep me in business. I'm 100% funded by you, which I do really appreciate. I also want to remind everyone that it is your last chance, because the merch will only be in the store until Sunday evening. So this is your last chance to head over to the Unwoke Art store. That is unwokeart.com, and pick up your sweet Trump RNC special collection, where I have a new Trump design in the Trump icon t-shirt. This t-shirt is 25% off. The discount is automatically taken at checkout. I have that available. But I also brought back some old favorites, some old classic designs, to include the Trump American Gangster Orange Seal mugshot design, to include the Trump Indictment Victory Tour t-shirt, which has Trump on the front given the victory sign, and a list of all the Trump indictments on the back, just like a concert t-shirt. It looks really cool in person. And then the piece de resistance, we don't even look at you can get the t-shirt version of it, and the t-shirt is fine. But the classic, the iconic golden Trump always get the last laugh mug. This is one of the best-selling mugs I've ever done. A lot of people get this mug and they give it away as gifts. It looks really cool in person, guys. And so I definitely recommend, if you're looking for a gift for the Trump lover in your life, you cannot go wrong with the Trump golden Trump mug. Always get the last laugh is what it says on it. You can get a t-shirt with that on it too. You can get mug versions of all of these things. And if you need some wrapping paper, just click view all on the homepage, and you can even get the golden Trump wrapping paper, or you can get the Indictment Victory Tour wrapping paper. And I sold a bunch of this over Christmas. People also love this wrapping paper. So those are some things that are available exclusively in the Unwoke Art store. You cannot get them anywhere else, and they will be leaving the store on Sunday, because these are special limited editions, and we got to move them out. So we got to make room for more limited edition merch. That's what we do in the Unwoke Art store. So guys, that is one of the best ways to support the work I'm doing. Get some cool stuff. The t-shirts are like a nice jersey. They're very, very comfortable. I almost exclusively wear t-shirts out of my store at this point, because they just fit well. They fit well where everyone. Don't worry that they don't have a women's cut. The women's cut on t-shirts generally sucks. This shirt actually looks great on women. So I hope you guys enjoy the merch. And yeah, that's all I've got on that. Now, it is funny, because I got to do a little preface for this, because actually, can we do beer first before I get into this? I didn't mean to take myself off the screen. I meant to do that. Can we do beer first? Because beer on happy hour is part of what we do. And as always, I get 4 beers, and you guys get to decide which beer I drink first. And I tell you about each of the beers. And then we'll go into our bit about James Lindsay, and we'll watch the Carl Benjamin video that I wanted to watch yesterday, where Carl Benjamin Sargon is talking about how James Lindsay blocked him on Twitter, which I know many of us can relate to as well. But I want to give you a little James update before we do that. But let's look at the beer first. Now, this first beer, I'm not sure how I feel about this beer. I'm not sure how I feel about this at all. I've never had this brewing company before. This is called Jester King Brewing, and it's called Cool Ship Bloodbath. And this is a farmhouse ale with coffee and beets. They put beets into a beer. So I don't know how to think about this, but I was like, why don't we give it a try? Why don't we be a little bit adventurous? I do like it's called Bloodbath. So that's something interesting at least. Coffee and beets. That is our first beer selection. Our second beer selection is from Drecker Brewing. Drecker does a lot of dessert beers. I really do like a lot of the stuff that I've had from them. And this is a fluff stuff beer. This is a cherry fluff mallow sour. So a cherry marshmallow sour ale. That's going to be from Drecker Brewing Company. That's called Fluff Stuff. Our third beer could get me in some trouble if I'm honest about it. Could get me in some trouble. This is from Barrel Souls Brewing. And actually, I originally was going to get a different version of this strawberry shortcake beer. But then I saw they had an Imperial. This is an Imperial Pale Ale that seems to be strawberry related. It's called Strawberry Tall Cakes. And this is from Barrel Soul Brewing. And this is about 11% alcohol. Strawberry Pale Ale. That's our third option. And the fourth option I have is a classic. I actually really love this beer, so I had to get it. I always try to get one when it's in stock. It's called Little Blonde Buddha. And this is a coconut Thai chili blonde stout. It's a blonde stout. It's so good. It's got a little spice to it. Definitely recommend. If you see this in the beer store, like people, I've been in the beer store when people are looking at this. They're like, I don't know about this beer. I'm like, you want to get that beer. It's really fucking good. This beer is really good. So that's why I picked one up, because I usually try to when they do have it in stock. So I'm going to put the poll in the chat over on YouTube. I apologize if you're watching on Rumble or X, but the poll is only available on YouTube. And again, we have beets and coffee. We have Fluff Stuff cherry marshmallow sour. We have Imperial strawberry shortcake. Or we have our blonde Buddha, the blonde stout. Let me know which one you want me to drink first in the chat. And while we're doing that, I'll get our stuff back up to talk about some of the lunacy that I've been experiencing on Twitter today. Because of course, last night I fell in love with Donald Trump all over again. I really didn't think that would happen, if I'm honest about it. I really didn't think that would happen. Let me see what oh, you guys want me to get drunk. Oh, I see. I see. All right, hang on. Imperial strawberry it is. Fuck you guys. Fuck you guys. Hang on. Gotta put the beer in the fridge. One sec. There we go. All right, the strawberry Imperial it is. Fine. You know what? I'm actually kind of looking forward to a little bit of the hair of the dog today. Maybe that'll make me come back to life, as it were. It doesn't look like a strawberry. It looks more like a pale ale. Cheers, everyone. Happy Friday. We did it. We did it. All right. So last night, I basically came to the conclusion that I just can't quit Trump. And I understand the arguments that some people have against Trump. I really do. I understand Nick Fuentes is really down on Trump right now. The Groypers are really down on Trump. I get it, man. They want the Trump of 2016. They want and I don't necessarily disagree with them on that. I understand their perspective on that, and I respect their perspective. I'm not going to tell anyone who to vote for, but I will say that last night for me, and I'll even get up my tweet where I put this. Hang on, I'll show you guys what I said on Twitter. But actually, I don't even have to. I can go here. Hang on. I can just go here. Shit. Hang on. Here's what I put on Twitter last night. And I actually tweeted this during Trump's speech. I said, okay, fine. I'm voting for Trump, despite all the reasons not to. I love him, and his being alive is a miracle. Everything happens for a reason. MAGA, whatever. Good luck, Trendlin. Everyone send positive vibes to Trendlin. So, and I really did, guys. Like, listen, at the end of the day, I think my thought process is this. It's like I know the convention is meant to put Trump in the best light and all that stuff. And you hear all these stories about people who just love Trump and all this stuff. You know, but as I was watching over the past 4 days, I absolutely have my criticisms. I'm really pissed off that there was only one speech in the entire RNC, because we watched everything from start to finish. There was one single speech about education. And it didn't even really talk about the things that mattered. It was like public schools are bad and we need to fix public schools. Okay, fine. I mean, yeah, that's all true, but it didn't actually get to any of the core issues that are at play. The closest that they got to like gender ideology and queer Marxism is they said over and over and over again, the left doesn't even know what a woman is. Which, of course, those of us who actually watch queer theory, watch queer Marxism, we know that that's entirely the fucking point. That's the point. And so I was really pissed off about that. And there are a lot of reasons not to support Trump. I do not like the choice of JD Vance as vice president. I do not like how beholden Trump is to Israel. I think that they're going to get us into a war with Iran. I do not like Trump's fan base. I really don't. I'm sorry if you consider yourself to be a part of that. I'm not talking to you specifically as an individual. I probably don't know you as an individual, but I just have not had good experiences with Trump's fan base. I call them magatards. Like, I think that they're awful, vile people. I am really pissed off at the conservative right embracing cancel culture, especially going after minimum wage workers who are not activists and have no power over anything. I'm just like, no, I mean, the only allusion they made to parental rights was to say we need to protect the American family. What the fuck does that even mean? They could have gone after Gavin Newsom for signing this new law in California where schools are not allowed to tell parents if their kids change their gender at school. They could have, that was just such a fucking, that was a softball. They didn't do that. So I understand people like Nick Fuentes and the Groypers, and they have different reasons than I do, who are still down on Donald Trump, who do not think this is good, who do not want to vote for Trump, who did not like his performance last night. I get it because I have my own list of grievances. And so I think it's a very valid perspective. I think that for me, though, and this is a little woo, and I acknowledge that this is a little woo, Trump really should be dead right now. He really should be dead. And I'm a person that I believe everything happens for a reason. I believe there was a reason that Trump turned his head at the very last moment. I believe there's a reason that he survived. And I just like Trump. And people can believe that or not. I just like Trump. And I like that more because of the shooting. I like that more people are seeing Trump in a different light. Like, there was this video that came out from Mark Zuckerberg earlier today where Mark Zuckerberg was basically like, watching Trump get shot in the face and then raising his fist in the air with the American flag was the most badass thing I've ever seen. Mark fucking Zuckerberg. And so I like that people are seeing Trump in a different light. And I want Trump to be able to have some good moments. I think Trump has gotten beaten up a lot over the past, decade. I think that Trump maybe deserves some moments where like maybe people who used to hate him are looking at him differently. And I want to see him win. I want Trump to have that vindication. And I know all these policy positions. I get it, fine, whatever. But like, I don't have a choice of any candidate that's going to be perfect for me in this case. And it is an emotional thing. I like Donald Trump. I want to see him have this moment. I want to see him win. I think that he survived for a reason. And so that's why I kind of changed my mind last night and came around to it. Not that I don't have very specific, explicit grievances that I'm going to be complaining about constantly and perpetually leading up to the election and after the election. But no, I'm absolutely going down the fascism rabbit hole. That's absolutely happening. Like let me just be clear. Like I'm actually not fucking around. I don't think Trump's going to save anything. I don't think Trump's going to fix the public schools. I don't think Trump's going to beat back the left. I think the conservatives are completely fucking useless. I think the libertarians are completely fucking useless. No one is doing anything of value to actually solve real world problems. And I really think that having a fucking dictator is the only thing that's actually going to work. I really do believe this. I'm not messing around. And so if that's just too much for people to swallow, then I don't know what to say, man. I don't know what to say. I care more about winning than I do about your feelings. But I'm absolutely not going to get into an argument with you about that right now, Kate, unless you want to send me money. And you can argue with me if you want to spend me money. But if you just want to keep complaining in my chat that I said things you disagree with, I'm just going to ignore you right now because we're doing other stuff. Anyway, but that is actually a good transition because between me saying I'm going to vote for Trump and me embracing my inner fascist, James Lindsay's simps have been reeing up a storm. Poetry Painter has been obsessing about me all over her timeline all fucking day. I am all Poetry Painter's to look. They got to do close-ups on my mouth because I got crooked teeth because I didn't wear the retainer after I got the braces. And that's not going to change. But Poetry Painter just like, you know what? Carlin has crooked teeth, guys. Did you know that Carlin has crooked teeth? Carlin, it doesn't matter what she has crooked teeth, okay? Can you imagine being so obsessed with someone that you literally like do that? And of course, the reason that she's done that is that she is one ugly bitch. She is one, but yeah, not crooked teeth. Anything but that. But one thing that she tweeted today was picked up by James, and let me just show you this first. So when I posted that I was voting for Trump, Middle MAGA, who is a great follow on Twitter. He like this guy. I love this guy so much. This guy wrote a whole press release announcing that I was endorsing Donald Trump. And so he wrote like for influencer and former New Hampshire gubernatorial candidate, which wasn't a real thing. That wasn't a real campaign. Dr. Carlin, I was on the ballot, but that wasn't a real campaign. Dr. Carlin Borisenko endorses Trump. Dr. Carlin Borisenko, a highly respected and accomplished psychologist, orator, author, journalist, commentator, and former libertarian candidate for New Hampshire governor, has made waves with her recent endorsement of Donald Trump. Known for her fearless approach to cultural issues, Borisenko announced her support for the former president on X following Trump's emotional and well-received RNC nomination speech. In a surprising turn of events, she declared, "Okay, fine, I'm voting for Trump despite all the reasons not to. I love him and I believe he's alive for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. God, I love Trump, MAGA." The endorsement marks a significant shift for Borisenko, who has been a vocal critic of both major political parties and ran as a third-party candidate in the 2022 New Hampshire gubernatorial race with a picture of me. And look at the replies. Just like this guy wrote a joke press release about me endorsing Trump because it's funny. And they were screaming and crying in the replies, and Poetry Painter was having, "How dare you say something nice about Carl?" They're posting videos. This, by the way, is the narcissist from England's sock account. I hope everyone knows that. Anytime you see this is the narcissist from England's sock account posting all these videos. This is Poetry Painter's sock account because she has to post twice under different accounts. This bitch is just crazy. This is what the pedo defender actually... I mean, do they think that that's a bad picture of me? Do they think that's a bad... The only difference between this picture and the other picture is that I have my hair pulled back in this one. Literally. I'm even wearing the same shirt. This is me with my hair not pulled back and looking to the side. This is me with my hair pulled back and looking straight forward. They think that this is... I don't think this is a bad picture of me. I'm perfectly fine with that. Anyway, this is their reaction when someone posts something nice about me on Twitter. Look, they just keep going. They just keep going. Like, this is like, these people are crazy because they have all these Telegram groups where they coordinate every time someone posts something nice about me on Twitter. This is what they do. But they also use people like James, because you'll notice who's retweeting Poetry Painter. James, still claiming to be anti-communist, although we all know that James is really more anti-fascist now than James is basically Antifa. James Lindsay has become Antifa by his own proclamation. And so Poetry Painter decided to post a screenshot of the video where James is saying, probably it's time to stop attacking communism and start attacking fascism. So James is literally confessing that he's Antifa in this video. And she says, I'm a fascist because James doesn't like fascists and I want to keep fighting with everyone. Please take me seriously. I'm a very serious journalist. People steal my work all the time. If I get to be a fascist dictator, I can make my hordes of haters really pay. I mean, that's not why I want to be a fascist. I want to be a fascist because, as I clearly say in the video that she took a screenshot of, but doesn't actually, play or anything, because she's an intellectually dishonest bitch. I don't think conservatives are going to solve anything. I think the only way to get gender ideology out of schools is to embrace fascism, is to embrace a dictator. I want the complete halting of all gender books, of all queer books. I don't want them being published anymore. I want the ones in existence being burned. I'm not actually making this up. I do actually want this. I want no more. I want it to be outlawed that there's going to be any additional publications on queer ideology anywhere. Critical race theory too. All this fucking leftist bullshit. I want publication outlawed. I want all these things burned. I want anyone caught teaching them in public schools to be arrested and jailed. I'm not fucking around. No more weird shit. Period. That's actually what I want. I want a dictator to come in and say, we're having a timeout. No more bullshit. That's what I want. But of course, these people are too stupid to understand this. And James, because James is an intellectually dishonest grifter, of course, never actually answers my intellectual arguments, never answers my intellectual criticisms of his work, never does any of that. He just retweets character assassination on the part of Poetry Painter, who, I mean, I just have to thank Mizakan. Mizakan made this meme of Poetry Painter. That's actually what Poetry Painter looks like, by the way. Well, actually, that's what Poetry Painter looks like. Just so we know what we're talking about. If you want to know why she's so concerned about the fact that I have crooked teeth on this side of my mouth because I didn't wear my retainer after my braces got off, and that's just the way it goes, it's because that's what she looks like in real life. And so I do have to thank Misa here for, I mean, I think that she's probably much fatter than that meme, but I think it was a good attempt. I think, that's probably what we're talking about. She's James's whore now. And, yeah, so that's the type of people that I have to deal with on Twitter on a daily basis. And so I don't mind so much taking a little break on Happy Hour to watch a video about Carl Benjamin complaining that James is blocking people on Twitter because we hate James and we think James sucks. And other people hate James, and they also think James sucks. So, just for fun, everyone mount the like button for me if you would like to listen to Carl Benjamin talk about why James Lindsay sucks.
Someone you cite frequently is friend of the show, James Lindsay.
Yep.
When Carl put this to James, despite having frequent conversations, James decided to block Carl and not listen to that. And this is, I think, the same reason why we keep hearing this term far right is the same reason why James doesn't want to acknowledge this, and the same reason why James is a liberal. In Cynical Theories, he and Helen Pluckrose said the reason they want to defeat critical social justice, wokeness, is because they fear not necessarily their aims going too far, because they agree with everything up until the 1990s, basically. It's that they're afraid of the far.
Hang on. Autohooks has a good question. What's the ugly tattoo concept called? And does that concept cover other issues that deal with aesthetics? Okay, so the ugly tattoo style is called ignorant tattoo style, and it basically goes back to like they're trying to queer tattooing. There's a whole article about this on my Substack. Go over to carlin.substack.com. Just look up tattoo, just search for that, and you'll find the article on ignorant tattoo style. But queer in general, queer is about destabilizing normativity. It's about destabilizing anything that is normal. And so anything having to do with queer is going to go against like accepted standards for like how society functions. So ignorant tattoo style, which is basically ugly ass, poorly done tattoos, like really bad, like we're talking even below like prison quality tattoos, like really bad tattoos. That is an attempt to queer tattooing. We can also look at things like socialist haircuts. Socialist haircuts are those weird mullet things where they have the sides of the head shaved and they have these little bangs. I wrote about this on the Substack as well. So like things like that. Anything that when queer comes up, you have to think about whatever the societal norm is, queer will go against the societal norm. Hope that makes sense.
Right backlash that's going to come when this thing inevitably fails. And what far right now takes to mean in parlance, this is why lots of disaffected liberals, even like yourself, Tim, are now part of the far right. Far right, especially after the Second World War, essentially put the blank slate on steroids because nobody wanted to see the Nazis rise to power again, means any nation, whether they fought or allied with the Germans, who has a preference for their own people, their own history, their own culture, and their own national preferences. And that is seen as a provocation against universal, homogenous, anti-racist liberalism. And so this is why I think any time that a post-liberal vision has been articulated that is particular about a religion or a people, the likes of James and some of the anti-woke coalition have gone, whoa, hang on, guys. I thought we were just going back to the 90s here. We don't want the religious right in charge. I'm going to denounce you just as much as the left, and I'm not going to listen to any of the principled criticisms of liberalism from the guys they now see as far right.
I basically think classical liberals should be routinely just ignored at this point. I mean, classical, like, listen, man, like, I've been in this game for 4 years now. Like, the intellectual dark web existed before that. They tried to make classical liberalism happen. It's obviously not happening. Classical liberalism is not going to solve any fucking problem in the world. And most of the time, I find the people who claim to be classical liberals to be just the most disingenuous, hypocritical, unprincipled, bastards at best. And so my general opinion on that is we should ignore anyone calling themselves a classical liberal, because I really just don't think they have anything valuable to add to the dialogue. And I think they're clinging on to this notion that if we can just have conversations with each other, then everything will be okay. Well, no, that's not going to work anymore. Maybe it could have at one point. It is obviously not working anymore. And I think that we just need to accept that and move on. Classical liberalism is a cope. Exactly. Classical liberals have given us classic problems. Exactly.
I muted James Lindsay. I didn't block him.
He's terrible on Twitter.
I muted him. And the reason was when I saw him arguing with you, Carl, and I know you, and you have sound, reasoned, and excellent conversations around these ideas, which are fun, funny, and exciting.
I didn't insult him, did I?
No, your tweet was very polite and academic, and he blocked you over it. And that said to me, I was like, at first I was like, well, that's weird. I'm like, I know James. He's a good guy. Like, why would he block Carl? They're the perfect people to discuss things.
He's not a good guy.
And then that was the first issue I took. But then
Tim is a horrible judge of character.
Started posting incessantly about Christian nationalism in such a way that conveyed no message.
He hadn't read the book when he actually made his podcast about it. He admitted this.
He just posted a post that didn't explain anything and just seemed like it was spamming it. And then ultimately he made the comment of something to the effect of, it's not my job to educate them. And I said,
it literally is,
no, it is your job.
These were three moves that were left liberal, leftist messaging strategies that I disagree with and find to be dishonest. And so I didn't block him, but I said, I don't want to see this anymore. This is ineffective messaging. It's irrational. He insulted my friend, which I take issue with, but I'm not so emotional to where I wouldn't listen to an argument simply because he was insulting Carl. But I felt that this classical liberal approach he was taking, or I'm sorry, the idea that he was promoting this idea but at the same time was presenting in much the same way as the woke, which I disagree with, I said, not interested.
It's interesting how, like, I mean, there's a radio host called Ian Dale in the UK, who normally is well known for his sort of common sense interventions. But when Suella Braverman, the former
now, to be fair and really clear, I don't think that Sargon Carl Benjamin is actually going to have the answer to any of these problems either, because I don't think that Carl Benjamin actually understands the left any more than I think James Lindsay understands the left. So please don't confuse it. I'm not on his side. I just think James Lindsay is an asshole, and the more people that think James Lindsay is an asshole, that's a victory for me.
Home Secretary came out and said, "Well, look, I don't think that we should trans children. Actually." He has defaulted back into that kind of shit lib, screeching leftist frame where he's got, I'm going to do everything in my power I can to stop her. It's like, but she's right. You know, why? Because he's fundamentally a liberal, even if he is a moderate one on most issues. Yeah. When you hit that hot button issue, then suddenly they become the screeching leftist. And it's like, what's going on?
Okay, so then go on with what you were talking
also,
about, the
Phil
alternative,
Labonte
because
I
still think that there's far more good in classical liberalism or whatever you want to say, call it, than there is bad. And I think that
no, he is right. He is right.
Listen,
I didn't say anything. I'm letting you.
Right.
Because I think that there's far more good in classical liberalism than there is bad. So what is this? What is the option or the solution? Because to say a postmodern traditionalist or something like that, people don't understand.
Yeah. So the thing to remember with liberalism is what it is the abstraction of the English political tradition. Right. And so when we were saying yesterday that America is the fulfillment of the English political tradition, in many ways it really is. And it's because this is just how the English have always done politics. This is what they believe to be true. Like liberalism is basically a form of like Anglo-Sharia, right? It's like this is the
Well, that wasn't as eventful as I thought it was going to be based on everyone sending me this video. That's all they talk about, James. I mean, that's probably appropriate. Probably appropriate. All right, well, that was fun. James is still an asshole. We all know that. Now time to move into our main show. We are going to be watching today. Everyone get their beer, get their alcohol, whatever you're drinking. Cheers. This strawberry shortcake Imperial is actually treating me pretty well right now. It is actually more red than I thought it was with my sunglasses on. Cheers, everyone. We are watching the debate prep that the Dartmouth College debate team did this year about queer theory. And so let's see what this guy from the University of Georgia is teaching students at Dartmouth College about queer theory.
The word queer is Let's talk about queer theory. My approach to this is to give you all a sense of what people mean when they talk about queer theory. So I'll kind of give you, I'll talk about the etymology of the word queer. We'll talk about kind of a history of the word queer. And the reason that I approach this topic like this, as opposed to just being like, here's what it does in debate, and here's why you can use it in debate in this way, is because the word queer is incredibly complicated. As it turns out, it's been used in pretty much every way you can think of throughout history, and especially in the last like 30 to 40 years or so. And so to get a sense of how it might be used in debate, I think we really need to have an idea of its history and kind of its meaning for a whole bunch of different people. And I hope that through that, it will give you a sense both of how it is oftentimes used in debate and how you can also respond to queer theory critiques as they are used. So all of that is to say that queer is very slippery. It is a very strange word that means a lot of things in a lot of different contexts, right? So obviously the most common way that it's used right now is an umbrella term that refers to the LGBTQIA plus community. But it also means a lot of different things. And as we'll talk about in the 1990s, it was actually used as a challenge to that understanding of how it is used now. So queer theory is a post-structuralist theory. Post-structuralism. Post-structuralism just says that while there are social structures that can help explain how human interaction and society functions. Those structures are not immutable. They are.
As a reminder, guys, I know we've had some fun the last 4 days. I know I've been drinking on stream the last 4 days, but we are getting back into serious content now, and I do not want to see stuff like this in the chat. It's not useful. It's just whining. If you're putting stuff like this in the chat, that means you aren't listening, you aren't paying attention. And so I don't want to see stuff like this in the chat. Our purpose here is to listen and to learn. And that is what we're doing. We are listening to the language. We are learning what they're teaching about. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to stay here, and that's just the way it goes. But we're going back to our normal content now. It's not to say we can't have fun, but I don't want to see any whining or complaining about the content, because the purpose is to listen to the content, and we know it's going to be boring going into it, and that's actually part of the point.
Are changeable, and they can be altered in different ways. Okay, so structuralism is a term in a lot of philosophy and critical theory and about.
Hang on. And if you guys do have questions, please feel free to ask those questions. Mimi's burner. So queer theory is the most common communism in America's institutions. I mean, is it the most common communism in America's institutions? No. I don't know that I would say that. But queer theory and queer Marxism is the most dangerous cultural component of communism that we have to deal with. It is in every single K through 12 school in America. If your children are in public school, they're 100% learning queer theory. If your children are in private or charter school, they are almost certainly learning queer theory, possibly with few exceptions. It is in entertainment. It's in media. Every time you hear stuff about gender, that comes from queer theory. The goal of queer theory is to abolish the gender binary. The gender binary just means men and women. They want to abolish the concepts of men and women entirely, create a world in which everyone is a they, them, or an infinite number of made-up genders. The goal of doing that is to abolish the nuclear biological family, attack parental rights, basically make kids the ward of the state. And they're doing all of that because this is all an attack at the end of the day on capitalism, which is defined as private property ownership. They believe that capitalism created the gender binary, which created the nuclear family. And in order to abolish capitalism, again, private property ownership, they believe they need to abolish the nuclear family in order to do that. So this is the biggest problem that I believe we are dealing with on the far left right now, because upwards of 40% of students in high school today believe that they are gender queer, gender fluid, gender non-binary. This is what happens, by the way, when all people do is focus on banning books from a library, because these ideas aren't even coming from books in the library. They're coming from things that are actually taught in the classroom. And so this is not, like, I wouldn't say the most common communism in America's institutions, but I think it's the most dangerous thing that we're dealing with. And I think it's the thing that most people don't understand, because liars like James Lindsay have peddled this idea that this is all about sexualizing children, which it's actually not. It's about convincing kids that they have no gender, or that they're gender queer, gender fluid. They can change their gender which as easily as changing an outfit. That's actually what's going on. It is really misunderstood because people don't understand, they don't pay attention, and we are all going to get massively effed unless people start understanding this. So I do appreciate the question. Thank you.
About 1900, maybe late 1800s, and people said, here is how we can understand how people work, right? So we might think of Marx as a structuralist theorist, right? He says that capitalism and labor and production explain how human relations operate in a world of capitalism, right? And he's just like, that's it. That's my explanation. That's how things work.
Capitalism.
Right? Or Ferdinand de Saussure, Saussure, is widely understood as the first structuralist. For him, that is language, right? The way that language operates is kind of a closed circle where, words only refer to other words. They don't really refer to things outside of those words. And as a result,
Andrew says, what's more horrifying than sending your kids to public schools where they're taught to hate themselves, nature, and God? I'll tell you what's more horrifying than that, Andrew. You know how I was saying that capitalism is defined as private property ownership by the left? Private property ownership includes parental rights. They consider parental rights to be a form of private property that they want to abolish in their communist utopia. What that means is that parents would not be able to raise their children in the way that they want to raise their children. The state would raise their children. It takes a village is a saying for a reason on the left, because they very literally want children to have multiple sets of parents, everyone in the community, and they don't believe in embracing biological kinship. They believe in kinship, in queering kinship. This is where family of choice comes from. So I'll tell you what's more horrifying than sending your kids to public schools. The fact that in 10 to 15 years, tops, and this is already happening in a lot of states, but I'm talking like nationwide acceptance. What's more horrifying? That in 10 to 15 years tops, parental rights will no longer exist. They will no longer be your children. That's what's more horrifying. They will no longer be your children. This is the problem that the Groypers are not acknowledging and not understanding in any way. And I know because I've had a Groyper in my DMs saying, "Well, Carlin, we don't talk about the left because we don't think that we don't believe that that's important to focus on right now." And I keep being like, "Okay, do you want to have kids? Because you're not going to have parental rights." Nick Fuentes lives in Illinois. If Nick Fuentes finds his hot Italian Catholic virgin bride in the next 5 years and she pops out a kid, there is a very high possibility that where Nick Fuentes lives right now, he will not have parental rights over his kid. I'm not exaggerating. Illinois is one of the most socialist states in the country. Look what's happening in California. Look, I mean, this has happened in red states too. This isn't just happening in blue states. There are very literally conferences that happen at law schools where they talk about, are parental rights really in the best interest of the child? The most horrifying thing that can happen is your kids will no longer be your kids. That's what you're contending with. And unless people start really wrapping their head around this, we are completely effed. And then, by the way, it doesn't matter if the conservative right still sucks. And I agree with Nick and the Groypers that the conservative right is public enemy number one. I think the conservative right is the biggest obstacle that stands in the way of actually addressing the issues of the far left. But running parallel to that, the left is trying to take away parental rights, and they're being highly successful in ways that most people don't realize. So there are two problems running simultaneously at the same time. We're paying attention to this one over here. We're not paying attention to this one over here.
That is the structure that kind of explains how human communication operates. Saussure, Saussure. So, right, structuralism is like, we've got a closed system that explains how things work, right? Wilderson is almost certainly a structuralist. He says that anti-blackness explains how human relations and being work. Post-structuralism says that while those structures exist, they are not immutable. They can change. We kind of alter them in different ways. Yeah. So if you want to go to the third slide on the PowerPoint here, I'll talk a little bit about the etymology of the word queer and why I think it's really important to think of queer as a post-structuralist theory rather than just a structuralist theory. So queer etymologically comes from the Indo-European root word twerkwa. Okay, that T-W-E-R-K-W. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that word correctly because I obviously don't speak Indo-European. But from that root word, we then get the German word Q-U-E-R, which means to traverse. Okay, we also get the Latin word torquere, which means to twist. And then we also get the English word athwart. Okay, so if we think about the etymology of queer, right, it comes from twerkwa to quer and torque and athwart. Okay, what queer points toward then is a sense of traversal or across or movement. Okay, so queer, it shifts, it turns, right? It's distinct then and means different things in different contexts and situations. Right, in Anna Marie Jagoza's words, this is the next slide on here. She says that queer, quote, is very much a category in the process of formation. Its definitional indeterminacy, its elasticity is one of its constituent characteristics, right? So this book, her book, this is amazing, by the way, if you're interested in this, Queer Theory and Introduction, really, really easy to read, really great description of kind of the history of what queer looked like in 1996 is when this was written, so it is a little old at this point, but still really useful. But so for her, then, at its core, queer is about movement, traversal, and difference. Okay, this, by the way, is important, this idea of...
Hang on. Hang on. Ah, why am I getting a notification? Queer is very much a category in the process of formation. Its definitional interdeterminacy, its elasticity is one of its constituent characteristics. Let me just rewind this and listen to that again.
At its core, queer is about movement, traversal, and difference.
Queer is about movement, traversal, and difference. Okay.
Okay, this, by the way, is important. This idea of movement, traversal, and difference is important both for thinking about queer as post-structuralism, right? It traverses these you
guys notice, by the way, you guys notice that he didn't say queer is about gay or trans. Movement, traversal, and difference. He did not say that queer is about being gay or trans, because you do not need to be gay or trans in order to be queer. This is critically important for any new people here to understand, because a lot of influencers have lied, and they basically try to convince people that trans means queer and queer means trans, or gay means queer and queer means gay. That's not the case. Queer is a far-left political ideology that is fundamentally designed to destabilize normativity, anything that is normative, anything that is within the norms of society, which ultimately they're referring to capitalism, again, defined as private property ownership. But like everything that they're trying to attack is basically to destabilize the norms of society. And the reason they're doing that is because once they destabilize the norms of society, they blame the destabilization on capitalism. Doesn't capitalism suck? Capitalism has created all these problems. You know what we need to do to fix these problems? We need to get rid of capitalism. And then they go, how about Marxism? You want to try Marxism? Because can we try Marxism? Because we have all these problems. We have all this destabilization of society. We have all these problems. We know capitalism is to blame. How about Marxism? This is how they get to the Marxist utopia. You do not need to be gay to be queer. You do not need to be trans to be queer. The only thing you need to do to be queer is to say that you are queer. That's it.
Of social structures that other theorists think are, definitive and set in stone. And it's also important for thinking about queer as kind of oppositional or non-normativity.
Aha!
Right, so
oppositional or non-normativity. Sophie blocked you? What did you say? Sophie's blocking black trans women? Seriously? Sophie, I'm very upset at you, Sophie. Yasmin is a black trans woman. Why are you oppressing Yasmin on your Twitter? That's not cool, Sophie.
Jumping ahead a moment, we'll get back to this, but Edelman and then eventually Stanley, who kind of position themselves as more anti-normativity, kind of end up drawing a lot from this queer as difference kind of thing. We'll come back to that, I promise. Right, but what I want you to get from that whole big rant right there is that at its core, queer is really about movement, it is about traversal, and it is about difference. Are you all with me so far? Great. So then what becomes important is if we think about queer as this traversal, this movement, then this difference is that initially when queer is reclaimed, right? So we've got queer as kind of this derogatory term, mostly throughout the 1900s, and then circa 1990 at New York City Pride. It's kind of the moment, if we can isolate a moment, when queer starts being reclaimed. And if you jump ahead to the next slide, I've got a quote from Queer Nation was an activist group who released this pamphlet called Queers Read This at New York City Pride in 1990, which is probably the
Queers Read This. We've heard about that before, haven't we? This is the original zine. This is one of the original zines that came out. Here's what it says. Well, yes, gay is great. It has its place. But when a lot of lesbians and gay men wake up in the morning, we feel angry and disgusted, not gay. So we've chosen to call ourselves queer, using queer as a way of reminding us how we are perceived by the rest of the world. It is a way of telling ourselves we do not have to be witty and charming people who keep our lives discreet and marginalized in a straight world. We use queer as gay men loving lesbians and lesbians loving being queer. Queer, unlike gay, doesn't mean male. And when spoken to other gays and lesbians is a way of suggesting we close ranks and forget temporarily our individual differences because we face a more insidious common enemy. Yes, queer can be a rough word, but it is also a sly, iconic weapon we can steal from the homophobic hands and use the homophobe's hands and use against him. This is when they reclaimed the term queer. 1990. This is the original zine. And zines, by the way, are a form of propaganda of the far left. It's something they appropriated from punk rock culture. It started, I mean, basically like early 90s, but like, and this is also, by the way, this overlaps with queer and narco-communism and that whole subculture as well. So this is, like, I'm actually really impressed that this guy got this because this is the original reclamation of the term queer. Yeah, we should definitely look into this next week, Human Centipede. You're right.
First time that queer is really used in this kind of reclaimed oppositional way. And they say...
Hang on. Tiffanel over on Rumble says, Carlin, could I simplify queer to mean change? No. No, you can't. Queer means against normativity. It means destabilizing normativity. It does not mean change. It means destabilizing normativity.
Well, yes, gay is great. It has its place. But when a lot of lesbians and gay men wake up in the morning, we feel angry and disgusted, not gay. So we've chosen to call ourselves queer. Using queer is a way of reminding us how we are perceived by the rest of the world. It's a way of telling ourselves we don't have to be witty and charming people who keep our lives discreet and marginalized in the straight world. We use queer as gay men loving lesbians and lesbians loving being queer. Queer, unlike gay, doesn't mean male. And when spoken to other gays and lesbians, it's a way of suggesting we close ranks and forget temporarily our individual...
By the way, the fact that they specifically say in this, queer does not mean male, that is an indication that they're trying to abolish the gender binary. They're trying to de-gender the entire experience of being a gay man or a lesbian. You guys know this, right? This is why everyone thinks like they're trying to eliminate lesbians. Like they do not like gay men and lesbians because gay men and lesbians mean there is a gender binary. By calling everyone queer, you make everyone non-binary. Non-binary means no binary, no gender binary. If you abolish the gender binary, which is their ultimate goal, that means you will not have gay men. You will not have lesbians. They will cease to exist. You will not have bisexuals. They will cease to exist. This is why they started replacing bisexual with the term pansexual. Because pansexual isn't gendered. Bisexual means two genders. That's why they created pansexual, which basically means the same fucking thing. And everyone was confused about, like, what is the difference between pansexual and bisexual? Pansexual is the degendered form of bisexual.
differences because we face a more insidious common enemy. Yeah.
No, I would not say queer means androgynous, and I actually have a whole video and a whole article on my Substack delineating the difference between queer and androgynous. So they are two very different things, and I recommend you head over to my Substack or watch my video on the topic for more information about that. Why would gays oppose commies when conservatives are being too aggressive towards F word? I'm not going to say that. There is a conflict of interest. Well, that's because conservatives are retards who constantly work against their own best interests. So no, gays are going to go with the commies because they've got no other place to go. And who would blame them, really?
Yeah, queer can be a rough word, but it is also a sly and ironic weapon we can steal from the homophobe's hands and use against him. Okay, so very explicitly here, queer is not gay, right? Queer is not gay, it is not lesbian.
Oh, really?
It is.
Oh, really? Has anyone ever seen this person in my chat? Have any of the regulars ever seen this person in my chat? Because I don't recognize you in my chat. I don't recognize you from my comments section. You don't even know what my fucking name is. And you want to come in and pretend that Carlin, I've always been a big fan and I've always been a supporter. And oh my God, I just can't believe that you are cavorting with the Groypers and Nick Fuentes. Has anyone ever seen this person in my chat? I know people who are in my chat regularly, bro. I know people who support my work. None of my regulars have ever seen you in my chat at all. No one knows who you are, bro. We don't know who you are. You have no history in my chat. You've never been here before. Bot just checked your chat history. You've never been in my chat before. Look at that. Nope, you've literally never been here before. And since you've never been here before, you won't mind leaving. Goodbye. Jesus.
Is not an identity category, right? It is oppositional to identity. It is oppositional to normativity, right? But it at once also kind of recognizes that the word queer has been used to signify violence, right? It's to say, let's take that violence, that violent position, and reclaim it, right? That's why the word reclaim is really important. And when you think about reclaiming different words in different contexts, it's that notice how it always takes a word that initially or before was violent, right? If we were having this conversation in like the 50s or the 60s, I would get fired for saying the word queer to you, right? Because, well, I guess, I don't know. In the 50s or 60s, people probably wouldn't have cared very much. But assuming that people cared, I would have gotten fired for saying that word, right? Because that would have been like pretty offensive, right? But we now live in 2024 where this word is pretty widely used in a lot of ways because the process of reclamation has allowed it to mean something different than what it used to mean, right? So the history of that, you know, queers read this, New York City Pride 1990, releasing this pamphlet where it is kind of oppositional to the identity gay or lesbian. What's important then to take away from that, and kind of another point that's maybe a little bit broader and thinking about queer and what queer theory oftentimes does now, is that queer theory is very frequently a criticism of identity politics. Queer theory is very frequently a criticism of identity politics. Do you all know what the word identity politics means? Kind of, sort of. Tara, right? What's identity
Queer
politics?
theory is a criticism of identity politics?
Kind of. Charlotte, you want to add to that?
It's just like arguing about identity and using it and how we like construct policies.
Yeah, I like that last part of using identity as a way to construct policies, right? So identity politics suggests that the primary focus by which politics ought to be conducted is along lines of identity and along lines of difference. And I mean, identity politics has certainly done a whole lot of really great things, right? It's why we have like diversity, equity, and inclusion boards. It's why we have why am I just
identity politics is great. It gave us DEI and affirmative
college.
action.
Right. It does some pretty cool stuff. Right. But at the same time, what queer criticizes about identity politics is that it staticizes what that difference is. Okay. It staticizes what that difference is. It suggests that because you reflect a certain difference about you.
Why do you say that? Is it because they hate all categories? And they want to eliminate all categories, and identity politics puts people in a category inherently?
In your identity, we can then characterize you.
Yeah,
as
it
a
creates
kind of
hierarchy.
person who
Okay,
does
I understand.
Or needs or believes X thing.
Yeah, so what Human Centipede is saying, so this is getting into more advanced ideas about queer theory. Okay, let me break this down. And this is going to get a little into the weeds for people who are newer to this, but just bear with us. One of the things that the left wants to eliminate is the idea of hierarchies. That some people, the bourgeois, have more than other people, the proletariat. Okay? MNG is the Mary Nardini gang. These are the original group. This is the original group of queer anarchists. It was a queer anarchist group in Milwaukee. In Milwaukee, of all, that's why you saw so many queer Antifa outside of the RNC, because the Mary Nardini gang is like the original queer anarchist subculture, and they were founded in Milwaukee. So that's why if you saw these queer Antifa, like Andy No was posting stuff about it, Laura Loomer was posting stuff about it, Milwaukee is like home base for fucking queer anarcho-communism. So essentially what the left wants to do is they want to eliminate all hierarchies. That's what equity means. Equity means the elimination of hierarchies. It doesn't mean we all get the same. It means we all end in the same place. From each according to their ability, to each according to their need. That means we all end in the same place. We all have access to the same resources. That's why they want to eliminate all private property ownership, to include your home, your land, your apartments, your businesses, your intellectual property, your parental rights, your individual liberties. That's going to create a society on equity in which there is no hierarchy. Okay? So when a lot of people think about the left, they think about the woke, I call it the woke oppression hierarchy. The left will call it progressive stack, in which you would have like Black trans women on the top because of intersectionality. So so if we did a progressive stack based on race, it would be Black people, Native American people, Latino people, Asian people, Jewish people, white people. Okay, everyone familiar with that? Like Black people are more oppressed, so they can't be racist, but white people are the least oppressed, so they're racist against everyone. You guys know what I'm talking about? Once you add other things in there, it's called intersectionality. So you would have like Black trans people are more oppressed than Black straight people or Black cisgender people, stuff like that. There's a whole some people are more oppressed than others. Well, identity politics, it may be useful for them in the short term in terms of like teaching ideas about social justice, which social justice means socialism. It may be useful in terms of getting anti-racist education into school. And we know based on teachers like Jesse Hagopian, who is a high school teacher out of Seattle, I have him on tape saying that the goal of anti-racist education is to create a socialist world. Anti-racist education is not about eliminating racism. It's about eliminating capitalism. There are literally books to that effect. Anyway, So there's a usefulness in having these categories of identity politics in terms of advancing a leftist agenda. But ultimately, what the left wants to do is they don't want to have all these categories, because once you have categories, you have a hierarchy where one is here, one is here, one is here, one is here, one is here. They want a world based on equity, which flattens the hierarchies. But that's like the ultimate evolution, right? They need to create the categories to create the dissension and the destabilization of capitalism so that they can continue to move society culturally towards a world based on equity. Does that make sense to everyone? That's not what I said. You need to listen. I need you to open your ears and listen. That's not what I said. I said the original queer anarcho-communist group, the Mary Nardini Gang, was founded and based out of Milwaukee. That's not saying that communism got a strong foothold in Milwaukee. It's saying that the original group was founded there. So those are two different things. It's an important distinction. We need to be and the reason I harp on this is not to be mean. We need to be precise about what we're talking about, because these are very complicated things. And the minute that you aren't precise about what you're talking about, it creates confusion. So I'm trying to prevent confusion at the pass. I'm not trying to be mean. Yep, and this is why ultimately they even want to get rid of the category of non-binary, because the existence of the category of non-binary is a category in and of itself. But that we're talking again about the evolution of this, where it's like there are different stages that they have to go through. Does that make sense?
And in doing so, a lot of queer theorists argue identity politics buys into the very system that it is attempting to criticize. Okay, so
yeah, he just said it. The notion of identity politics buys into the system that they are trying to criticize. You guys hear him say that?
In doing so, a lot of queer theorists argue identity politics buys into the very system that it is attempting to criticize.
Because identity politics buys into a system where these hierarchies exist.
Okay, so, when we say things like, we always need to listen to X people in all instances, right? That becomes a statusized understanding of what that group of people believes and says. Right? Part of the problem is that it then boxes those people into certain categories, right? If you do not believe that thing that you as that person are supposed to believe, then you are not good enough as that person. Right? It's static. It's stuck. And queer as movement, as traversal, wants to question that stuckness or that staticness. Right? Now, seriously, please don't get me wrong. Identity politics, in a lot of ways, is great. It really does some really important stuff. Right? But what queer theory invites us to consider is that
I'm going to ask a question, and I'm asking mostly for like a human centipede, and I don't know if Rottweiler's here, and maybe a couple other people, but everyone can feel free to weigh in on it. Is the left moving into a post-identity politics phase, do we think? Because we've heard this coming up quite a bit lately. Like, the left really embraced identity politics under Obama because it helped them to destabilize the system. It helped them to integrate social justice into everything and anti-racism into everything. Is the left now moving into a post-identity politics phase, is my question. I don't know the answer to it, but maybe people have some thoughts.
There are some also pretty important limits to identity politics that we maybe need to rethink.
I'm very sorry.
Figure out how can we move past, but also consider identity within our politics. Does that make sense to everybody? Are you all with me? Okay. So we see.
Hang on. People have got to get this idea out of their head. The pendulum is never going to swing the other way. The pendulum has stopped fucking swinging. Pop quiz for the chat. Why do I say the pendulum is never going to swing the other way? Let me know your answers. Why do I say that the pendulum is never going to swing the other way? I got to go back and read that one again. I'm not sure I ever finished that one. Why do I say the pendulum is never swinging the other way? Because they own the schools? Yup, that's part of it. They own the institutions? Yup, that's part of it. There's a very specific answer. They do have too much power, but there's a very specific answer as to why it's not swinging the other way. The institutions are all captured. The long march through the institutions is done. And in addition to that, you cannot solve this problem by winning elections. I'm going to say that again. You cannot solve this problem by winning elections. That's not going to happen. You can only solve this problem by overtaking the institutional power, which, unless we get a good old-fashioned fascist fucking dictator, is never going to happen, because the long march through the institutions took almost 100 years. The Groypers are the only group that understand the need to take back these institutions, by the way. That's why they're infiltrating conservative political organizations. They understand the need to infiltrate organizations. I think they just got there too late. Not their fault. They're young. That's just the way it goes. But Donald Trump could win in November and have a clean sweep and win the House and win the Senate with a 60-vote majority. And it would still not matter, because winning the presidency and winning the House and winning the Senate with a 60-seat majority does not take back the institutions. Politicians go. Institutions stay. And if Donald Trump did do that trifecta in November and he got all the branches of government, all the different legislative branches, that would most likely turn around in 2 years and the Democrats would win the House and the Senate the next time. And so that means Donald Trump has 2 years to fix everything, and he's horrible at hiring, and he's probably going to start a war with Iran, and JD Vance doesn't understand shit. Pendulum ain't swinging this time. Maybe it did in the past because the long march through the institution was complete, but it ain't happening. Well, Vance wants a lot of things. Vance also wants us to go to war with Iran. So Vance can hope and wish upon a star that we're going to take back all the institutions, but Vance is not going to have the power to do any of that as vice president. Isaac, thank you for the super chat. Democracy favors the left because it's based on an assumption of equality, the core of leftism. Nope, that's not why democracy favors the left. Democracy favors the left because the left actually gets off their asses and does things while conservatives stay home and whine and complain. That's why democracy favors the left. He also has strong wording about wanting to bomb Iran. Vance is not going to have any power as vice president to take back the institutions. He doesn't really have any power at all. He has power over, he can convince Trump to hire bad people, which he will do. Vance wants to get rid of Project 2025, which are the America First loyalists. I don't trust JD Vance as far as I can throw him. I don't care if he said words. I really don't care. I'm looking at his actions.
In this quote here from Queer Nation, very much the opposite of identity politics, right? So gay men sleeping with lesbian women, right? A gay man, to be gay, is to be someone who is uninterested in sleeping with a woman. Lesbian, to have that sexual orientation, is to be defined as someone who is uninterested in sleeping with a man. Right? That's weird. That's weird. It's odd that these gay men and these lesbian women are sleeping together. Right? Because as gay, as lesbian, that's not a thing that they want to do, according to a statusized understanding of what that identity means. Right? That's queer. Queer says that identity category is exploded. It doesn't mean the things you think it is.
Hang on. We got a question from Green Eyed Lady. Thank you for the questions. Are there heterosexual queers? Yes. Homosexual queers? Yes. Lesbian queers? Yes. Transgender queers? Yes. Asexual queers? Yes. None of these things has to do with being queer. Queer is not about your sexuality. Queer is not about whether or not you're trans. Queer is not about whether or not you are asexual. Queer is not about whether or not you're a lesbian. Queer is not about whether or not you're gay. Queer is only and exclusively a far left political ideology. That's it.
Right. Other examples, especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, of kinds of queer versus identity politics is affirming gay shame instead of gay pride. Right. So I assume you all are familiar with what a gay pride festival is at this point. Right. So at a gay pride festival, we're supposed to celebrate being gay. Right. I just went to Nashville's Gay Pride Festival. It was insane. It was huge. The parade was like 5 hours
queer.
long.
Imagine my
super hot
shock.
and dehydrated by the end of it. But
Imagine
the one common
my
piece
shock.
of every single
He's
person there
queer.
and every single person in the parade, especially.
Hang on, I got a super chat from Strong Gamer. Thank you for the super chat. The 19th Amendment assures that all institutions stay left. Harsh truth, repealing it would stop all wokeism, not just the school issue. Hey, I'm going to be really clear. When I have my fascist dictator is also going to outlaw red pill men spewing this bullshit, because none of you actually understand what's required. Like, by the way, every single one of you red pill assholes that hides behind an anonymous account, I'm going to look in your eye and I'm going to call you a pussy. You want to be strong men? You want to pretend that men are the only leaders? You want to pretend that men are the solutions to all your problems? Then put on your fucking big boy pants and use an account under your name with your real photo. You are not a man if you are hiding behind an anonymous account. And I certainly do not trust you to lead anything if you won't put your face on the internet. I am more masculine than you will ever dare fucking dream. None of you have any idea what is actually even required to repeal the 19th Amendment. Yet you just run all over the fucking internet going, repeal the 19th, 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 me. Always hiding behind cowardly, anonymous accounts. So until you can overpower me with your fucking toxic masculinity, shut the fuck up. Thanks for the money, though. I'll keep your money. Appreciate it.
Actually was, yeah, let's celebrate you. Let's celebrate the fact that you're gay. Right? It's pride. It's happiness. Okay? In 2003, at the University of Michigan, a bunch of academics put on a conference about gay shame instead. And they said, what if instead of celebrating the pride of gayness, we instead affirmed gay as a way to shame normativity? Right? They were like, this pride thing has a bunch of limitations. It's corporatized, right? It's neoliberal. Every other float I saw at the National Pride Parade was like Boeing, or like I swear to you, there was shoot, I don't remember the company right now, but there was a drone company who had a float at the National Pride. It's like, oh my God, that is terrifying. Right? That is terrifying. We are like, let's celebrate being gay through drones and bombs. Right? That is normative now in a lot of ways. Because gay as an identity politics has been accepted as a thing that you are allowed to be. And as a result, in in a lot of ways, it is co-opted by neoliberalism and capitalism and the military-industrial complex as a justification for, I don't know, supporting Raytheon. Gay shame instead said, no, screw that, right? A whole part of what this conference was about was, we think that the corporatization of gayness, or the idea of affirming pride within the public sphere, is bad.
Yeah, Rottweiler says small PP or closeted gay, they're clueless, LMAO. Yeah, all these red pill men are like, repeal the 19th, repeal the 19th, repeal the. Listen, bro, how do you expect to repeal the 19th if you're not showing your face in public? Good fucking luck. How do you expect to lead the country if you're not showing your face in public? Good fucking luck. You can use all the rhetoric online that you want, but unless you're actually willing to put your money where your fucking mouth is, it's just all talk. It doesn't mean anything.
Right? Another example. So the AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s, okay, killed a whole lot of people. AIDS, by the way, is still killing a whole lot of people across the world. But there was this group called the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, or ACT UP. The most famous AIDS activist group in the world. They've done a lot of cool stuff. Would recommend reading about them. It's like really interesting. A whole lot of their demonstrations were really happy and really campy. Do you all know what the word camp means? Yeah? Okay. Do you want to explain camp real quick? Oh, I thought you shook your head. Yes, maybe not. You just told me your name. I'm sorry. It's Eve. I knew it started with an E. Okay, Eve.
It's just like, I guess one way of explaining it is like so ironic that people like love it again.
Yeah, that's one way of thinking about it, right? It's so over the top. It's so ironic. It's just so insane and absurd that you can't help but love it. Oh, they did also do die-ins. You're right. But they did all those things at the same time. We'll get to that in 1 second. Like, there were demonstrations in 1990. ACT UP demonstrated on Wall Street, right? They were like, so in 1990, there's this drug called AZT, which was the first AIDS drug that was released. Burroughs Wellcome was the name of the pharmaceutical company that developed it. You will almost certainly read about Burroughs Wellcome on this topic. They have a lot of stuff in pharma. But AZT was super expensive, unaffordable, right? And so a whole part of this demonstration was ACT UP. They held signs that were like, sell Burroughs or sell Wellcome, drop Wellcome, right? They were like, destroy their stock value because these assholes are why people can't access this medicine. But what's really interesting about this demonstration is not just that they were serious, because obviously they were, right? This is a pretty serious thing, right? But they also would like dress up in nun costumes, right? People would dress up as Jesus, right? They were campy. They were over the top. And a lot of, if you read the any memoirs from activists in ACT UP, a lot of what they say is that the reason why they loved being a part of this group is because they felt like it was a sense of community. They felt like they were home. They felt happy and enjoyed being around these other people, right? So while ACT UP also was known for the die-in, right, where they would literally pretend to be dead bodies in front of like the Federal Drug Administration, right? Really serious kinds of things. They also had these like weird, happy, campy moments, right? That's clear. So if you want to go to the next slide, I have another quote that helps, I think, explain this a little bit. Also from Anna Marie Jagoza. Again, read this book. It's great. Both the lesbian and gay movements were committed fundamentally to the notion of identity politics and assuming identity as the necessary prerequisite for effective political intervention, right? So identity politics, to have effective political intervention, a staticized notion of identity is a prerequisite, okay? Queer, on the other hand, exemplifies a more mediated relation to categories of identification. Access to the post-structure.
Conservatives literally believe that all fascists are Marxists. See, this is the problem with the right. The right doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about because they have been lied to by their influencers for years. And now the right are all in my comments on YouTube saying, Carlin, you can't become radicalized as a fascist. That would make you a Marxist. They literally think I'm a socialist now because I said that I'm embracing fascism as a solution to the problems of socialism. I cannot. They're so dumb.
Structuralist theorization of identity as provisional and contingent, right? So if the structuralist understanding of identity is that identity is static, here's how it is, it explains how the world works. Post-structuralism, it's provisional, it's contingent, it's different in different situations. We act it out differently. Access to the post-structuralist theorization of identity as provisional and contingent, coupled with a growing awareness of the limitations of identity categories in terms of political representation, enabled queer to emerge as a new form of personal identification and political organization. Okay, so if identity politics is this kind of static thing, queer emerges in the 90s as a different way to relate to identity and politics.
So queer emerges as a new way to relate to identity and politics because queer is a political identity. Look what it says. Both the lesbian and gay movements were committed to fundamentally to the notion of identity politics in assuming identity as the necessary prerequisites for an effective political intervention. Queer is a political intervention. Queer, on the other hand, exemplifies a more mediated relation to categories of identification. Everyone see that?
Okay. Is everyone with me so far? Cool.
Queer eliminates all the categories. It basically eliminates all categories that are non-normative and puts them in one place. But remember, guys, according to James Lindsay, queer is a Gnostic sex cult. Literally, he literally believes this. He believes that queer is a Gnostic sex cult. It's not about eliminating categories. It's not about making everyone non-binary. It's not about any of these things. James Lindsay swears on a stack of Bibles on the that he will eventually use to convert to Christianity later on this year, probably around Christmas. That queer is just a Gnostic sex cult, guys.
So if what we talked about so far is queer's etymology means kind of traversal, this across kind of thing. It's developed, reclaimed in the 1990s as kind of anti-identity politics. It's still important to recognize and kind of remember that as a word gets reclaimed, it is not detached from its previous meanings. Okay, as a word gets reclaimed, it is not detached from its previous meanings, right? So words have histories. So in other words, then, queer cannot be forgotten as an insult. Queer cannot be forgotten as an insult. And yet, that is part of what gives it its force and why it is so interesting and meaningful. So if you want to go to the next slide, I've got a quote from Judith Butler. Butler's my favorite queer theorist. She's probably my favorite theorist, period. Wonderful. I'm sorry, they, not she. That just changed recently. But
Judith
wonderful, has some really, really smart stuff to say. They have a book in 2004 called Undoing Gender, which I think is a very easy book to read and to kind of understand their theories, right? So their best book, on my view, is Gender Trouble, that's released in It's either 89 or 90. I don't remember right now. But that like shook the world. That's where they really developed the stuff about.
So Judith Butler's book Gender Trouble was released at exactly the same time as the Queers Read This zine. Does anyone think that that timing is a coincidence? I don't think that timing is a coincidence.
Talk about, but it's very complicated and very difficult to read. About the year 2000 or so, they got a lot of backlash from activists who were like, hey, we know that the stuff you're saying is really important, but we don't understand it because we don't have PhDs. Can you please make this simpler, please? And Butler was like, yeah, okay, why not? And then released this book in 2004 called Undoing Gender, which is way easier to read. Also just released a book in 2024 called, it's either like Who's Afraid of Gender or something like that. Just if you look up Butler 2024, you'll find it. That book's also awesome, super easy to read. Anyways, I have a quote here from their book, Bodies That Matter, that talks a lot about how we have to still understand the insulting or insultive nature of queer when we are using it. Because again, words have histories, they're not really divorced from those things. So they say that queer derives its force precisely through the repeated invocation by which it has become linked to accusation, pathologization, insult. Okay, so the way that queer has force or power or authority is because it is linked to insult. Okay, the interpolation echoes past interpolations and binds the speakers as if they spoke in unison across time. So to simplify this then, the reason that queer can be reclaimed, the reason that people look at queer, so like in 1990, when Queers Read This was released, right, the reason that was even picked up in the first place is because queer was an insult, right? You can't just like make up a word and be like, yeah, this word is gonna, it now means traversal and weird and across and stuff, right? Because people will be like, what are you talking about? Right? It doesn't get picked up. It doesn't have force in the same way that a word like queer does, because of its connection to insult throughout history, right? But for Butler and for a lot of queer theorists, that's kind of the point. Okay, so Butler 101, just really quickly, this is kind of what they say, right? There is a structural force that we oftentimes will call heteronormativity that kind of weighs down on us, it shapes us, it influences.
Kevin, Jordan Peterson is insane. Jordan Peterson doesn't understand this at all. Jordan Peterson is a con artist. Jordan Peterson is unprincipled. I do not think that Jordan Peterson is valuable at all. I'm sorry. Maybe he was at one time, not anymore.
This is what words can mean. But, right, so that's the structural piece of this, right? Heteronormativity, it's a thing, it's a structure, it helps explain how the world works. But, Butler says, in the repetition of certain words, like queer, slight changes happen. Okay, when we use words, they are never exactly the same as their previous uses. There is always something that is a little bit different about it. And that comes from the context, it comes from who we're talking to, it comes from the time, etc. Right? So there is room for things to change. But that change is slow, it is difficult, and it is certainly not like a big revolution against heteronormativity or anything like that. Right? So to give an example, and this example's maybe going to be a little weird, but it's the one that's always stuck with me when I was talking to my advisor about this. Deodorant. You all should wear it. If you're not wearing deodorant, please wear deodorant. It's great. What do non-binary people do? You go to Target. There is deodorant for men. There's deodorant for women. There is not a deodorant for non-binary people aisle at Target. There is a deodorant for men aisle. There is a deodorant for women aisle. Okay? When that person who identifies as neither male nor female, or neither man nor woman, goes down and picks out a deodorant that is designed for men, there is a structural force of heteronormativity that has interpolated that person as man. Okay? It is not a particular person that did that, right? It's not like someone standing next to you at Target and is like, tell us now, are you a man or a woman? Decide what aisle you're in for your deodorant. Like, obviously, that's insane. That's not how things work. But the force of heteronormativity is shown through the fact that a non-binary person is forced to make that choice. Therefore,
normativity is enforced via deodorant violence. And this is a lecture that was given at Dartmouth College, Ivy League school, very recently because it was just uploaded to YouTube yesterday and it's a 2024 lecture. Gendered deodorant is violence.
forced to either decide, am I more man or am I more woman? Which deodorant do I buy? But at the same time, that person still has the agency to present themselves in certain ways, identify in certain ways, call themselves certain things in ways that are never exactly quite the same. Okay, so maybe that person buys a man's deodorant today, and then when that runs out in 2 months, they buy a woman's deodorant.
All of a sudden, they're non-binary again.
Right? And also, obviously, the deodorant you buy does not define your gender. Right? That's insane. Right? Like, I wear women's deodorant. Like, I know it's more expensive, but I don't know why. Men's deodorant just doesn't really work for me. I get terrible pit stains, but women's deodorant is great. I really like, is it Glade, whatever that one is. Like, really works well for me. Am I a woman because I buy women's deodorant?
Yes.
No. Right? But in that moment, when I am buying that for myself, I am being interpolated as woman. But I still have the agency to say, to dress a certain way, to present myself a certain way, to cut my hair a certain way, to define myself in a certain way that is not that.
Yeah. Good for you, sweetie. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so that's Butler 101, by the way. It's like structural force of heteronormativity, but post-structural because we kind of can have the agency to challenge that in some ways, even insofar as our agency is still constrained by that thing. Okay, but what's important is like, all of those things are contextual. All of those things are contingent, right? So what we would understand as queer now is very different than what queer was in 1990, right? Men paint their nails all the time now. Is that queer?
Yeah, this is exactly right, Human Centipede. It's a gender assassination attempt. Trump only had to survive one assassination attempt, and they only shot him in the ear, okay? The queers have to survive 50 gender assassination attempts every time they buy deodorant. Every time they buy a gendered product. It is an assassination of the core of their being.
I don't know. Right? Hairstyles, ways of dress. These things change.
Every time they go to the bathroom.
Right? So
Exactly.
what was queer at the time of New York City Pride 1990
humanity
may or may not be queer now, right? Like New York City Pride in 1990 probably was queer because New York City, I don't remember what year Pride starts, but 1990, it's like not really a widespread thing. Right? But now everyone and their mother has a pride parade everywhere. Right? Pride parade's probably not queer anymore.
Pride's no longer good enough. Oh, great.
Right? Is being gay queer? I don't know. In some ways, yes. And in some ways, no.
You just heard him say it. Is being gay queer? I don't know. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Again.
Right? But now everyone and their mother has a pride parade everywhere. Right? Pride parade's probably not queer anymore. Right? Is being gay queer? I don't know. In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. Right? When I lived in Harrisonburg, I went to James Madison University for undergrad, right? Pretty small town in Virginia. I swear to you, there were 30 gay.
It's not about it being a non-answer, Steve. That's not what we're concerned with. What we're concerned with is the fact that it is a direct admonition that being queer has nothing to do with being gay. Being queer has nothing to do with being trans. Queer is a political identity. Anyone can be queer. You don't need to be gay to be queer. You don't need to be trans to be queer. Anyone can identify as queer.
Gay people in that town. The entire town, including myself. Right? Was being gay queer? Maybe.
Maybe.
I now live in Nashville. And on the one hand, I walk down the street and literally everyone I see is gay. Right? Is being gay queer then? Maybe not. But at the same time, Tennessee, pretty conservative state.
Again, that's because queer is about pushing back on normativity. That's what it's about. So if you are a gay man in a completely straight town, then being gay would be an act that would push back on the normativity of that town. But it's not about being gay. It's about doing something that is not the norm. But if you're a gay man, I don't think Nashville is a very good example. If you're a gay man in the Castro in San Francisco, where everyone is a gay man, then queer, you aren't queer because you like that. You're not pushing back against normativity. You are the norm in that case.
We got a lot of politicians who are not really up for gay people, kind of want to take away our rights.
So I appreciate you like offering this, and I understand why you guys think this, because that's how it's presented. But you're hearing it. This is a queer theorist. You're hearing it directly from them. They're telling you what they mean.
So maybe being gay is queer. I don't know. Right? It's contingent. It's contextual. It's different in different times and spaces. So then, I want you all to think of queer as, sometimes it's a noun, right? Sometimes we use it as an identity category. Sometimes we use it as oppositional to an identity category. And sometimes it's a verb. Right? So we've talked noun so far, who is queer? What is queer? What might it mean to queer something as an action?
Good question. What does it mean to queer something?
Maybe it is making it weird or strange or uncomfortable.
It's going against the norm.
Right? So the example from that Queers Read This quote before of like...
So he just said that to make something queer is to make it weird or strange, right? Has everyone heard of like Austin, Texas basically has this slogan that exists in Austin, Texas. It's called Keep Austin Weird. And there are other cities that do this too, but I think it's just most pronounced for me in Austin because I've seen it more there. I think Portland does this as well, but which would make sense because Portland is leftist. But has everyone heard of this? This slogan that Austin, Texas has, Keep Austin Weird. Does everyone know what that slogan is about? Keep Austin Weird. Am I just making this up? Has anyone heard of this? I'm not making it up, but I don't know if anyone's heard of it. Nightlights has. Steve has. Yeah, okay, so people in the chat have heard of this. Does anyone know what that's a reference to in terms of like, why does Austin, Texas have this slogan, Keep Austin Weird? I know the answer for this question, but I want to see if you guys know the answer to the question. The reason they have this slogan, yes, it does have to do with the arts district. Yup. Keep Austin Weird is about pushing back against gentrification. It's about pushing back against like chain stores coming into Austin, against like gentrifying agents coming into Austin. It's about maintaining this kind of like small business, like, you know, these cool little shops that everyone like, it's owned by like a small family and all this stuff. It is anti-capitalist. That's what it is. They don't want the big corporations coming in and having these chain stores everywhere or these chain restaurants everywhere. They want, and you know, in some ways I like this. I'm going to be honest. In some ways I actually think that I actually like it, but I want people to understand the basis of it. It's like anti-corporatist. It's anti-capitalism. Does that make sense? They want to keep like the kind of like hippie kind of like counterculture nature of it. Again, in some ways I really respect it, but that's what it's in reference to. The reason I bring that up is our debate coach has just defined queer as something that's like, maybe it's weird. Keep Austin weird is a specific slogan against corporate interests.
Gays sleeping with lesbians, lesbians sleeping with gays, that maybe is a queering. It is to make it weird. It is to make it strange. You are supposed to react to that by being like, that doesn't make any sense. This is weird, right? It makes it kind of uncomfortable. Maybe it means to make it not straight though.
Mary, capitalism is defined by the left as private property ownership. So to be really clear, guys, every single time I say the word capitalism, I am specifically and exclusively defining it as private property ownership. We are not talking about corrupt capitalism. We are not talking about crony capitalism. We're not talking about any of that because that is not what the left means. They mean private property ownership. That includes businesses, by the way. The left doesn't want you to own a business. They might say, you don't have to give up your small business, but really they call small businesses the petit bourgeois. So they don't want people to have small businesses either. So that's the definition you need to keep in mind. Is it different than socialists being against private property? No, because capitalism is defined as private property.
It means to make it not heterosexual, right? So the Human Rights Campaign, HRC, is the largest, I guess, gay organization in the country that kind of focuses on politics. Like they do a lot of stuff in politics, but they have a campaign they call Queering the Vote, right? They call it Queering the Vote, which for them means getting more LGBTQIA plus people to vote.
Ooh, new slime.
Right? So maybe making something queer, to queer something as a verb, is to make it not straight or not heterosexual. Part of what I want you to get from this, and why I'm saying maybe, maybe not, is that, you know, if queer is traversal, if queer is across, then queer also kind of has to be radically open. It is very difficult, I think, to look at someone using the word queer and say, no, that's not what queer means. Because I think that action of saying that's not what queer means is antithetical to.
Yeah, so this is a good question. Do they point to historical examples of queer society or nations in history? Yes, they do. In fact, there is an entire map that exists. Maybe someone has the link for it and can remember the link. Someone made a Google map of all of the instances in which countries and different societies have been queer throughout history. And like you can just Google like queer map or something like that and you'll probably be able to find it. But they'll tell you all the different ways in which like the elders in the indigenous societies were queer and they were the most respected of them all. And they were, I mean, that's what two-spirit means. Anytime you see two like LGBT2SQ, anytime you see the 2S in the acronym, that means two-spirit. Two-spirit is a reference to indigenous queer people. Yeah, the queer empire. We saw a whole presentation about it. Yep.
To what queer does and what queer means throughout its history. You look really stumped.
If queer is oppositional to like I guess like the corporatization of gayness and like pride and stuff, how can that usage of the word queer be not
Yeah, Bob put the map in the
I
chat.
don't know how to say this, but it feels like companies using the word queer like
Nope, this is not true. Nope. No. It is not. It doesn't matter if they become the norm, because the goal of all of this, green-eyed lady, is to abolish the gender binary. They can say they're pushing back on the norms of society all they want, but once they become the majority in society, they're not going to be like, okay, now we can go back to gender again. Now we can go back to the binary again because it's non-normative now. That's not what they're going to do. The goal is to abolish gender entirely. And then after that, it's to abolish categorization entirely. And as a result of that, that's going to lead to the abolition of the nuclear family, which is going to lead to the abolition of capitalism. That's what they're doing. The revolution never ends. It just goes into a different phase.
in pride parades, like gets rid of the meaning and makes it's like a less queer.
Maybe. And there are a whole lot of people who make that argument. I think make it really smart. Jassier Poires is a really, really, really good author for this. But at the same time, if queer is traversal or across, then we therefore have to think about queer through context. And the context of the United States of America is that for a company to be able to call themselves queer and affirm LGBTQ+ people is really different.
Okay.
It is really anti-heteronormative. So yes and no is the answer to that question, I think. Yeah. And people debate about this all the time. I think like by this point, most theorists are pretty like, yeah, we don't really like Raytheon very much. Like, I think we're all pretty on board with like, hey, let's not bomb people in the Middle East. Like, but my point is just there is an argument to be had, or an argument to be made, that I think is worth engaging and thinking about instead of just like trying to shut down that conversation. Okay, so I want to continue with this, like everything is weird, oppositional stuff. This is where a lot of queer theory and debate ends up coming in. Because if queer is anti-normative, then maybe it should be understood as oppositional politics.
Oh, I'll turn on the closed captioning.
Okay, so we've got Halberstam's.
Wait. Queer is queer. It may be understood as oppositional politics. Hang on, let's listen to that again.
Stuff. This is where a lot of queer theory and debate ends up coming in. Because if queer is anti-normative, then maybe it should be understood as oppositional politics.
If queer is anti-normative, it should be understood as oppositional politics. That's because queer is a political ideology.
Okay, so we've got Halberstam.
Hang on. These are the types of conversations you have in a declining empire. Ironic to think of privilege in a world where you have to think of it. Yeah, I mean that's very true. That's very, very true. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, this is at Dartmouth College. This was at Dartmouth College very recently.
Stam's 2011 Queer Art of Failure book, where they define queer as, maybe it's opposite to the side of success, right? Queers, Halberstam say, fail spectacularly. And that is what is really queer about us, is that the how normative society has defined success, we queer people can't ever possibly meet that, and therefore we have failed and we should be on the side of failure, right? There was a pretty successful team from Michigan who read this book as part of their argument and beat people all the time on, well, if we've failed, that's why you should vote for us, because it means that we've been queer and you should affirm queerness. There's a whole lot of things wrong with that line of reasoning, but they won a lot of debates on this, right? Or maybe the way that Lee Edelman in his book No Future defines queer.
Edelman.
is important, right? Edelman says that queer is the opposite of the future, right? Queer is the opposite. Edelman's pretty decently structuralist in saying that queer is structurally antagonistic toward civil society, toward the future, toward what he calls the child with a capital C.
What?
Right? He has a paragraph that I can't repeat in front of children where he says the F word a lot. Is like F little Annie orphan, F the child, F the future. And he's just like, that's what queer means.
I'm sorry, what was that? Who is this? Edelman? Lee Edelman? Can someone look this up? Lee Edelman? Yeah, let's watch this again. Hang on, let me just look this up. Lee Edelman. Who the fuck is this? Oh, he teaches at Tufts. Lee Edelman, Department of English, Tufts University. Oh, he teaches at Columbia too? Of course he does. Oh, you found it. Oh shit. No, this is just at Columbia. Hang on. Let's look at this real quick. Why is this not? Why is this like blacked out? Okay, this webpage is loading weird. The future is kid stuff. No, it looks like that. Like this is something different. This is something different, bot. So this is what this is what this is from. What bot found isn't from this book though. Hang on. This is what this is from. No Future, Queer Theory, and the Death Drive. Yeah, Sin, you found it. Sin just put the link in the chat. In this searing polemic, Lee Edelman outlines a radical means socialist, radically uncompromising new ethics of queer theory. His main target is the all-pervasive figure of the child, which he reads as the linchpin of our universal politics of reproductive futurism. It's in the Discord. Thank you, Human Centipede. Appreciate it. Edelman argues that the child, understood as innocence in need of protection, represents the possibility of the future against which the queer is positioned as the embodiment of a relentlessly narcissistic, antisocial, future-negating drive. He boldly insists that the efficacy of queerness lies in its very willingness to embrace this refusal of social and political order. In No Future, Edelman urges queers to abandon the stance of accommodation and accede to their status as figures for the force of a negativity that he links with irony, I don't know that word, and ultimately death drive itself. All right. Interesting. Basically, everything we do in politics is to protect the innocent child. That's what he's saying. All right. Thank you, Human Centipede. Appreciate it.
Of reasoning, but they won a lot of debates on this. Right? Or maybe the way that Lee Edelman in his book, No Future, defines queer is important, right? Edelman says that queer is the opposite of the future. Right? Queer is the opposite. Edelman's pretty decently structuralist in saying that queer is structurally antagonistic toward civil society, toward the future, toward what he calls the child with a capital C. Right? He has a paragraph that I can't repeat in front of children where he says the F word a lot. Is like F little Annie orphan, F the child, F the future. And he's just like, that's what queer means. Right? If we all agree that heteronormativity is bad and violent and mean and evil, then maybe we should think of queer as oppositional to that.
If we all agree that heteronormativity is mean and violent and bad, heteronormativity just means that it is the norm for people to be heterosexual. That's it. Well, it also means assimilation to capitalism too, because they don't like homonormative. They also don't like gay people who okay, so socialists don't like gay people who just get married and have like normal relationships where they're like monogamous and they just buy a house and they settle down and they work and they don't like gays who assimilate to straight lifestyle either, because that's considered to be homonormativity, which is a reference to destabilizing capitalism, stuff like that. But they also obviously don't like heteronormativity because they consider heteronormativity to be the norm of society.
But maybe we can think of oppositional in a more idealistic way, right? So if you go to the next slide, we've got a pretty long quote from Jose Esteban Munoz, who wrote this phenomenal book, Cruising Utopia. One of my favorite books of all time, strongly recommend. So the first paragraph of this book says, queerness is not yet here. Queerness is an ideality. Put another way, we are not yet queer. We may never touch queerness, but we can feel it as the warm illumination of a horizon imbued with potentiality. We have never been queer, yet queerness exists for us as an ideality that can be distilled from the past and used to imagine a future. The future is queerness's domain. Queerness is a structuring and educated mode of desiring that allows us to see and feel beyond the quagmire of the present. The here and now is a prison house. We must strive in the face of the here and now's totalizing rendering of reality to think and feel a then and there. Okay, so if for Edelman, queerness is the opposite of the future, Munoz then writes this book in direct response to Edelman and says, no, queerness is the future.
Oh,
queerness
good.
is that dawning forward, that desire for something better and something more, and a world where, not this, whatever that might mean. Right? I really like the phrase, it's the warm illumination of a horizon imbued with potentiality. Right?
This
so
isn't wrong. This is not what they're talking about. I'm not saying that you're wrong that there are 6 genders in the Talmud, or 6 whatever I'm not saying this statement is wrong that it's in the Talmud. What you don't understand is that this is not what they're saying. Queer is about the elimination of gender. It is about the elimination of categories. This is not in the Talmud. This is why you guys that just blame everything on the Jews, you miss the things that are happening right in front of you because you are not listening. This is not what they're talking about. What they're talking about has nothing to do with gender categories. They don't want there to be gender categories. No, it's not. This is why you will lose. You are not fucking listening. You are talking about something completely fucking different. We have spent half the stream today talking about how they want to eliminate all categories. You are talking about something completely fucking different because the only thing that you can see in everything is Jew. They want 0 categories, no gender. They don't want the Talmud version. The radical revolutionary socialists, most of whom aren't fucking Jewish. Your argument falls apart completely. This has nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. This is conservative propaganda bullshit. Your argument falls apart completely because you do not understand what they are saying, because you are not fucking listening. All you're doing is saying Jew, 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 Jew. They're not even talking about the same thing. And what you're going to do now, because you're feeling a little annoyed at me, is you're going to dig in your heels and be like, that bitch just doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. And and I know that because I've had this conversation about 15,000 times in the last couple of months. Wrong. You just said earlier. They have 6 different sexes and 8 different genders in the Talmud. They're not talking about that. This is a question for you and you alone. And if you do not answer this question honestly, I'm going to permanently ban you from my chat. What point are they making about gender? This is for this Adventure Time person. Sad Venture Time. This is the only person I want answering this question. What is their goal regarding gender? Nope. Wrong answer. You get one more try. If you get the answer wrong or if you don't behave in an intellectually honest way, I'm permanently banning you from my chat because you have no business being here if you're not going to behave in an intellectually honest way. What is their goal when it comes to gender? I literally just explained it to you. So if you were listening, you should be able to very, very easily answer this question. What is their goal when it comes to gender? We're waiting. Literally just explained it. If you were listening to me, all you need to do is parrot my words back to me. What is their goal when it comes to gender? We're waiting. We can put on the Jeopardy music if you want. What is their goal when it comes to gender? Nope, not the correct answer. You get one more try. What is their goal when it comes to gender? I literally just explained it. Literally just explained it. What is their goal when it comes to gender? That's not the one I wanted, but it kind of works, honestly. That's not actually what I wanted, but it kind of works. Here we go. Here we go. What's their goal when it comes to gender? Oh, you just got banned from my chat! Congratulations, you just got permanently banned from my chat. The reason you got permanently banned from my chat is I told you several times to shut the fuck up about the Jews and listen, and you refused to do it. And then I asked you a question that I had already told you less than 5 fucking minutes ago, and had you just fucking listened, you would have known the answer. But I'm very sorry. You're far too stupid to be here. We can't waste time on stupid people like you. You are permanently banned from my chat. Get the fuck out. Bye, asshole. You know, there are intelligent conversations that we can have about the overlap between communism and the Jews. There are actually intelligent conversations to be had about that. But when these fucking retards come into my chat and all they just do is blame everything on the Jews and they make everything about the Jews and they refuse to listen to what's being said right in front of them, even when what is being said right in front of them, do you want to get banned? Okay, same question. What is their goal? This is now your turn. And if you don't answer this question, you're going to get permanently banned. You want to play this fucking game? Let's do it again. This is for Kittler the Based and Kittler the Based only. What is their goal when it comes to gender? No one else answer this. We'll do this all fucking day. What is their goal when it comes to gender? The radical revolutionary socialists and the queer Marxists. What is their goal when it comes to gender? And that's not the same as Jewish. Most of them are not Jewish. Try again, asshole. What is their goal when it comes to gender? If you can't answer this question, you're getting permanently banned. What is their goal when it comes to gender? We're waiting. Every single person in my chat can answer this question. Why can't you answer it? Because you don't fucking listen. If you answer this question in an intellectually dishonest way, or you try to fucking obfuscate, you will be removed. There we go. There we go. There we go. We got an answer. We got an answer. A relatively correct answer. So now riddle me this, asshole. How does that overlap with there being multiple genders in the fucking Talmud? You're telling me the Jews are saying multiple genders in the Talmud, but the socialists want to remove gender entirely? Those two things are not the same. But at least you got the question correct, so I'm not going to permanently ban you. Thank you very much for playing. We appreciate the intellectual honesty. This is literally the first time that I've ever asked one of the Jew people to answer a question correctly, and they did it. So we have to give credit for that. No permanent ban. It was an intellectually honest answer, and that is the point. There are conversations that can be had on this topic, but when your default is just to say Jews, 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 it is intellectually dishonest. It is intellectually dishonest. And I don't deal with that bullshit here. Every fucking other influencer on the internet is an intellectually dishonest shill. We are going to hinge into reality on this channel. No, it doesn't. You want to keep going? No, it doesn't. Do you want me to shout louder? No, it doesn't. Now you really are going to get banned. Because now you're back to fucking intellectual dishonesty. Literally, no one is saying it did, asshole. We know exactly where it came from because we've already reverse engineered all of it, and none of them were fucking Jewish. Literally, none of them were. We already know where it came from. This is intellectual fucking dishonesty. And it's completely distracting to what we're fucking doing. And I am so sick of this. Every single time. This is one of the reasons, like, I regret even being around you guys, because every single time now that we sit down to learn about queer theory and queer Marxism, we are constantly distracted with this bullshit from people who think they know more than us, but do not know more than us, because all they know is Jews, 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 Jews. Fuck you. It is nothing but a distraction. And I'm going to go even one step further. I don't even want to have intellectual conversations with you assholes about this because you ignore reality when it's put right in front of you. because it doesn't fit the mold that you want it to fit. You think you know everything because you reversed engineer the Jews. Congratulations. This is a different thing. It came from queer anarcho-communist subculture that started in the late 80s and the early 90s. That is where these ideas come from. That is when the word queer was reclaimed. This did not come from the fucking Talmud, and I am so sick of hearing about it. Does anyone else have anything they want to say, or shall we continue? When you guys make this all about the Jews every single fucking time, you make it impossible for us to have intellectually honest conversations with you about this. Because you're not being intellectually honest, and you're not, oh, I'm a liberal. Oh, I am. Oh, you just broke rule number 1 in my chat. Now you're permanently banned. Goodbye. This is what happens every single time with these Jews assholes. It's what happens every single fucking time. They get told no, they whine, they complain, they deflect, they're intellectually dishonest, they continue to whine and complain and deflect and be intellectually dishonest, and when they're called out for it and information is put right in front of them, they go, "You're a liberal. Fuck you." Now let's wrap up. We've got 10 minutes left of this presentation.
You look out, you can see the horizon, and you can walk towards the horizon, but as you walk towards it, it gets farther, it's still farther away, right? But at the same time, you can see that horizon. Like if you watch a sunset, it's beautiful, right?
Sorry for the yelling, but I'm really frustrated by this.
But it's something we can try to feel for and see, right? So if Edelman takes a
maybe I don't want that cozy channel after all. There was a brief moment where all the groypers were asking me, like, when are you going to get a cozy channel? When are you going to get? I was like, whatever. If Nick wants to give me one, whatever, I'll do it. But if he doesn't want to, that's fine too. And now I'm just like, no. Because it would just be this all the time. It would be this all the fucking time with no end. Too bad. Too bad. Carlin, didn't we find the abolish the family and gender roles in the Communist Manifesto? Abolish the families in the Communist Manifesto. I don't think gender's in there, but abolish the family definitely is. Not trying to disagree, but that is where the no. That's not why they're confused, Gloria. They believe that everything regarding so what the Groypers believe is that the Jews are the people that have pushed every subversive thing into society. They believe that Jews are responsible for all communism. They believe that Jews are responsible for all gender ideology. They believe that Jews are responsible for all diversity training, all like interracial stuff, like race mixing, stuff like that. They believe that every single force that is trying to subvert society comes from the Jews. S. Stinger over on Rumble just got timed out for the remainder of the stream. You guys want to insult me, you're going to get timed out. Or banned, depending on how I feel about it. And the point that I keep trying to make is there are legitimate points that the Groypers make about this. There are very, very legitimate points. I'm not saying all Jews are responsible for this. That's bullshit. Okay? That's bullshit. No, there is nothing in the world that every single person in a singular identity group should be universally blamed for, right? That doesn't make sense. But there are legitimate points that they make. However, it is impossible, goddamn fucking impossible, to have conversations with them about their legitimate points because they don't fucking listen to anything that does not fit in this small little ideological framework. No, Jeremy Kauffman is an asshole, dude. Jeremy Kauffman just pisses off every single person he's ever tried to work with, including me, including most of the people I know in New Hampshire. Jeremy Kauffman can go fuck himself. Jeremy Kauffman has done so much fucking damage, it's not even funny. And this is all really frustrating to me because it's like the Groypers think they know everything, and they really know nothing because they think they know everything. They know nothing. They are not open to learning new things. They are not open to being outside of this little fucking box that they put themselves into. They are not able to compute information that is outside of this box. They're not able to have intellectually honest conversations because they always have to look at everything through the lens of Jew. That's it. It's infuriating. And ultimately, this stuff will lead to them losing parental rights over any kids they might have. You know, one of the Groypers' big things is we need to have white babies and blah, 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 blah. Well, congratulations, assholes, because you are incapable of listening. You are incapable of processing any new information at all. You are going to have parental rights when you have kids. The state's going to own your kids. You aren't going to be able to pass your values on to your kids. The state's going to take them and put them in fucking education camp that the state decides what they learn, and they're going to spend more time in state-run schools than they are at home, and you are not going to be able to undo the damage. But that'll be their problem, won't be mine. I don't have kids. I don't have to worry about that shit. Let's wrap up, guys. We got about 10 minutes left of this presentation.
Pretty pessimistic understanding of how queer operates. Munoz takes a pretty optimistic one. And I'm, obviously showing my hand here by having the Munoz quote and not the Edelman quote, but I definitively think Munoz is right. And we'll talk more about that towards the end here in a few minutes. Right, but so maybe queerness is radical negativity, maybe queerness is an embracement of failure, maybe it's an embracement of the future and radical possibility, maybe queerness is such a radically different or non-normative position that it has to be, as Stanley terms it,
not what we're talking about.
You go to the next slide. Got a pretty long quote from Stanley here as well. Overkill is a term used to indicate such excessive violence that it pushes the body beyond death. Overkill is often determined by the post-mortem removal of body parts, as was the case with both Lauren Page and Rashawn Brazel. The temporality of violence, the biological time when the heart stops pushing and pulling blood, yet the killing is not finished, suggests the aim is not simply the end of a specific person, but the ending of trans/queer life itself. This is the time of trans/queer death, when the utility of violence gives way to the pleasure in the other's immortality. If trans/queers, along with others, approximate nothing, then the task of ending, of killing that which is constituted as already dead, must go beyond.
Queer is about anti-normativity. Normativity means capitalism and anything that upholds capitalism. Queer is about pushing back on anything that is normative, which just means normal. It is not about keeping the straights off anything. Straight people can be queer. Being queer is not about being gay or trans. Straight people can be queer.
On normative times of life. In other words, if Lauren Page was dead after the first few stab wounds, then what do the remaining 50 wounds signify? So Stanley says that queer is that which must be eliminated.
There's a whole video explaining this on Twitter. You are welcome to watch it.
by kind of broader heteronormative society, right? It is that which is not only oppositional to, but which by definition must be eliminated by heteronormativity. So the reason that I kind of just introduce all of these different understandings of queer, both as noun and as verb, is to suggest to you that it does a lot of different things in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people in a lot of different contexts.
Are you a fucking retard? I'm not asking you that because you're black. I'm asking you that because you're in my chat right now on X asking the most retarded questions. Are you a fucking retard?
Right? It shifts, it moves. I don't think it's really possible to hold down queer itself. Right? Like when these people write these books, it's very rare that people will write and say, this other person who understands queer this way is wrong and we should not think about it like this. It is very rare.
Well, rest assured, I don't dislike you because you're black. I dislike you because you're fucking stupid. I dislike stupid people. Whether they be black, brown, Asian, Jewish, whatever. Oh, yeah, so you are a retard. She is a retard. There's a retard in my chat on X. I know I am shocked by this information. Oh, God. Please just let me finish this stream.
Almost basically never that someone does that. Instead, the way that people write and think about queer is additive. Even as that additive nature is conflicting with what queer was doing before. Right? So there are a whole lot of people who read, for example, Edelman and Munoz together. And that's probably the most famous quote unquote fight within queer theory is Edelman writes this polemic of like queer radical negativity. Munoz is like, no, actually it's radical futurity. That's one of the maybe only times I can remember where people in queer theory are explicitly like, no, you're wrong. But even then, queer allows scholars to take those oppositional books and theories and put them together and try and think differently about what queer can do. Right? And so that's what's really cool and interesting about it and why I study it academically, but also what makes it so complicated and so messy and chaotic and unpredictable, but also really fun and I think super interesting. Right? Because it is and is not identity. It is and is not a criticism of identity. Right? It is and is not something that we do and enact, etc. Right? So I will end with my very brief thoughts about how this kind of thread, all of this stuff kind of works together is that it's like I find myself to be pretty optimistic. I kind of can't.
Oh, God. A sock account is back. Why are you banning people for different opinions? Because I can ban whoever the fuck I want. You are in my house. This is my private fucking property. You don't get to set the rules for my fucking house. I will ban whoever I want. And right now, I'm going to ban you because you're obviously not high IQ enough to be here. You obviously have nothing of value to add. You just go, why can't I disagree? Goodbye. 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 Oh, you used to like my videos? You used to like my videos? I've never seen you in my chat. I've never seen you in my comments. I've never seen you in my replies on Twitter. But you swear you used to like my videos? Fuck you, retard. I don't believe you. You're not smart enough to be here. Goodbye. God damn. What is with people today? I'm seriously asking. Like, what the fuck happened? Everything was fine up until like half an hour ago. And then half an hour ago, something happened and we started descending into the fucking land of retardia. We had a great stream. There were some great questions. To help with the beer needed to get through today. Hey, thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate the super chat, bro. Andrew, not a retard.
Imagine what living in the world would look like if I were to wholeheartedly embrace Edelman or Stanley and just be like, that's it.
Someone shared my stream with
Overkill.
morons. That's probably what happened.
But the way that I
Starbright.
think about those kinds of more pessimistic takes is that these polemics are necessary, but not sufficient. Right?
Yes.
We needed Edelman to write.
I
in
will
2004.
absolutely be a fucking fascist on my fucking stream. And if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. I am one. If there's anything I'm going to embrace fascism for, I am a fascist on my fucking stream. I am the dictator. I decide who gets to be here. I decide what we talk about. I decide what we don't talk about. And if you don't follow my fucking rules, you will be removed. And that's how it should work in fucking society.
Or that queer was radical negativity. We needed Stanley to write Atmospheres of Violence and remind us that queer and trans people are still being murdered constantly. Right? We need those reminders. But at the same time, we can't let that be it. Because then we've come to what is basically now what? I don't know.
I'm gonna get a Nazi hat
I
to wear
will
on my
also
stream
say
from now on if I'm
that
gonna be a
it's
fascist.
hard for me to read someone like Eric Stanley as a queer theorist. I kind of think of him more as like, I mean, like he's writing about some really terrible things, but I just
The
I think he's
retard is
too
still whining on
structuralist,
Twitter. Still
right?
whining.
The thing that
Why the
I
fuck is she still
myself
whining?
find very important about queer theory is its post-structuralist takes, because that's what in its history separated it from gay and lesbian theory, feminist theory, and race theories of race in the like 1990s. Is people were like, hey, the problem with these things is that they're too staticized, they're too structuralist, the world is super closed. We need to think more about how we can push that. And so maybe then queer theory. Right. So while I think that Edelman and Stanley and to some extent Halberstam's a little bit more optimistic than either of those people, are important and meaningful, and we should read and engage with their work.
Yes.
I myself
Everyone must
find
call me
them
Hera
not
Furline
anywhere
from
near
now
as
on.
persuasive as someone like Munoz or Butler, who wants to give us ways to figure out how to survive in a world, you know, that is oftentimes oppositional. But I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. There are very smart, educated people who disagree with me, and I think that's super legitimate. And again, part of what's cool about queer is that like we can have these debates all the time.
I'm blocking you as soon as I go
what
back
all
on
of this
Twitter,
should
Kashanta. I
also
hope you
tell
know
you
that. Like,
is
fucking
that
hell. Jesus Christ, let me block her now.
To read queer theory in debate is difficult. And to answer queer theory in debate is very possible, and I think it is very legitimate to read the scholars who say, no, we need to take more optimistic stances against the more pessimistic stances that people oftentimes read. Right? So like last year, my team from MBA read Stanley in a couple of debates, and a whole bunch of what we talked about before that debate.
See, and I want people to notice, like, this bullshit, when people come and do this, it distracts from everything else that's going on. This is why I ban these morons. They distract from everything.
Before those debates started were both me being like, oh my God, this is so simple and wrong and missing so many things. Oh my God, we should think more complicatedly about this stuff. But more importantly, how do we answer the other teams who's going to say like, no, you're thinking about this wrong. We need to think more optimistically and more open about this stuff, because that scholarship's really good. Those cards are very good in response to this kind of pessimistic take. So if you're someone who wants to read the more pessimistic arguments, you really got to think that through and how you want to put those pieces together. Because, and last little ranting thought.
Yeah, I'm gonna clip that later.
Another thing that I really like about queer theory is that it forces us to think in ways that are a lot more complicated than most other theories, at least as they're deployed in debates, invite us to think, right? So, 90% of K debates in high school, at least, end with, you said the state is bad, right? Which, like, yeah, obviously the state does a bunch of really bad stuff, but queer theory invites us to think of the state as both bad and good, right? The answer is never yes, no, good, bad, right? A debate tells us to think like that because we're forced to negate each other, right? We're forced to say the other team is wrong. But there are so few scholars who actually write like that because the world is such a complicated place, right? And context is so key for how we think about, I don't know, violences against certain people based on race, gender, nationality, sexuality, etc., such that we need to try and push ourselves to consider that, I don't know, maybe the state isn't always bad, right?
State isn't bad if it's enforcing our ideology.
The state sucks, but like, I love having healthcare. Healthcare is great.
The state isn't bad if it gives me universal healthcare.
I've had this conversation with a couple different students of like if you want to transition, how are you going to afford HRT? You need healthcare. Right? And like, healthcare sucks in this country in a million different ways, but like, God, it's better than nothing. Right? So I don't know. That is definitely me getting on a soapbox, and I can step off that. I am over time now, but I'm happy to stick around if y'all have questions. Otherwise,
all right. That is the end of that, guys. I actually think we learned a lot from that one. The deodorant clip was obviously the best clip of the day. I do want to watch this. We're not going to do it tonight, but I do want to watch at some point. Hang on. Despite the morons, like the retards over on Twitter. Look at that. The truth is, the anti-racist streamer that reacted to you clocked your tea. See, when I have to deal with retards, I just can't stay focused. I can't. It's just like, man. What the hell? I do want to watch at some point. I do want to watch this, Capitalism and Neoliberalism. It's by the same guy we just watched, except he had different hair and was wearing a mask. I also kind of want to watch this Afro-pessimism thing just because I feel like I'm not well-versed in Afro-pessimism, but Afro-pessimism is something that keeps coming up over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Oh, they do that all the time. They do that, all the time. But that's going to end us for happy hour for today, guys. As a reminder, I will be back tomorrow for Socialism Saturday. We do Socialism Saturday every Saturday at 6 p.m. Let's see. Marx lives over on Rumble. I'm not watching Nick's channel right now. What I want to learn about Israeli power. I watch Nick's channel. I'm learning about... Yeah, see, we're supposed to learn about queer theory right now. Listen, and again, I'm going to say this again clearly. I think there are conversations that I can have with the Groypers about the overlap between what they care about and what I care about. But the Groypers have not yet wrapped their head around the idea that this is not all the Jews. They do this, like, where does it come from? Who's they? They are the radical revolutionary socialists. They are the anarcho-communists. Well, Carlin, do you know where communism comes from? Yeah, I know where you think communism comes from. That does not mean that the communist activists today are who... See, now we've just gone round the bend. See, now retarded Kashanta. This is why we can't have black women around. I'm sorry. I don't actually mean that. There are wonderful black women in my community, and I would never besmirch them. There are actually really fucking awesome black women in my community. So that was me being a bitch. I take that back. Not in regards to Kashanta, though. Remember, I said from the very beginning, the problem with Kashanta here is not that Kashanta's black. I don't actually give a fuck if Kashanta's black. The problem is that Kashanta is a low IQ retard. And, one thing I have learned from the Groypers, oh, you're going to make me go viral? Oh, am I? Oh, am I? I'm so scared. I'm so scared. Oh, no. Oh, you made a clip? You made a clip after you behaved like a retard in my chat for half an hour? You made a clip? Oh no. Oh no. Please. Don't, retard. Don't. Oh no. However will I survive? However will I survive? Oh no. Oh no, a clip on the internet. Yeah, I'm actually not actually that worried. You want to make me go you want to make me go viral, bitch? You want to make me go viral? You know what I'll do? I will use that to post all these clips in my timeline. Like about what is actually going on, and people can go look at that. Like, do you have any fucking idea how many times I've been canceled? You think I'm scared of one black bitch over on Twitter, one black retarded fucking bitch over on Twitter that got a clip out of context on a stream? Oh no! Fuck you. Do you know what I'll do if she posts that clip and it actually ends up picking up traction? I'll turn off my computer and I'll go to bed. Anyway, yeah, I mean, my God. Remember, guys, Kashanta, the retard on Twitter, swore she was like a big fan, and she was a lurk, and she's been watching my video for years, and she was a big fan. She was the biggest fan, but now she's gonna call me a racist, and oh my God. Jesus Christ. All right, guys, that's all I have for tonight. I will look forward to going viral on Twitter, apparently. I will be back at 6 p.m. tomorrow for Socialism Saturday. I don't even know. How many times I've been canceled, man. I don't even know. I don't care, though. Like I said, I'm embracing my fascism. I'm embracing the fact that I just don't give a fuck anymore. People can think whatever they want. I don't give a fuck. All right, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.